The unbreakable mindset shift. What if the strongest version of you is not a version that never feels pain, but the one that learns to stand still in the middle of a storm, not by avoiding struggle, not by wishing it away, but by stepping right into it with your eyes open? There is something powerful about a mind that refuses to break, not because it is made of steel, but because it bends, adapts, learns, and still holds on. Most people believe mental strength is a gift, something passed down through genes or hardened by tragedy, but that is only half the truth. Real resilience does not just appear. It is built. It is built in the small moments that seem meaningless, in the quiet times no one notices, and in the thoughts you choose to feed when no one is around to see. A man wakes up to the same life every day. He is not poor. He is not rich. He is not in danger, but he is not free either. Everything around him is okay, just okay, but deep inside, something is not. He walks the same path, talks to the same people, listens to the same voices in his head, and each day he feels smaller, not because life is cruel, but because he has forgotten that he has a say. He thinks he has no power, but the truth is, he gave it away a long time ago, one quiet decision at a time. That is how most of us lose our strength, not in dramatic collapses, but in the daily silence of letting things slide. The unbreakable mindset begins when you stop waiting to feel ready and decide to reclaim your inner ground. Not all at once, but piece by piece. Like stitching yourself back together with every act of awareness. Your thoughts, they are not just echoes, they are instructions. If you keep telling yourself that you cannot do something, you are not predicting the future, you are building it. The brain listens, it adjusts, it reflects what you feed it. So the shift begins in choosing better words, even if your world is still the same. This is not fake positivity. It is not pretending to be happy when you are hurting. It is noticing the pain and still choosing a direction that serves you. A mindset that becomes unbreakable does not need to avoid darkness. It learns how to carry light into it. One of the most powerful things a person can learn is that discomfort is not the enemy. Growth does not come from comfort. Comfort is the reward of past discomfort faced with courage. The man who avoids every difficult situation never becomes stronger, he just becomes more afraid. But the one who feels fear and still acts, that is where change begins. The shift happens quietly. When you wake up and decide that your mind is not a victim of your circumstances. When you see a challenge and say, I do not know how, but I will try. When you feel exhausted but choose to move anyway. Not recklessly, not blindly, but with awareness. That is strength. And strength is not loud. It does not need to prove anything. It is not about winning arguments or appearing tough. It is about the quiet refusal to give up on your own mind, to choose self-respect when no one is watching, to set boundaries that protect your energy, even if people do not understand. It begins when you realize that not every thought is true just because it is loud. Some thoughts have lived in your head for years, not because they are wise, but because they are familiar. You have listened to the voice of doubt more than the voice of possibility, and that repetition made it feel like truth. But it is not. It never was. Every time you act with courage, even if you are shaking inside, you are rewiring the map of your mind. You are telling it, this is who I am now. Not the version that crumbles at the first sign of difficulty, but the version that sees struggle as a signal to rise. Let us pause here. Breathe. Let go of trying to become someone else. The unbreakable mindset does not mean turning into a robot. It means becoming more fully yourself beneath the noise. It means seeing pain as part of the process, not a punishment. It means forgiving yourself quickly and not carrying every mistake like a backpack full of stones. You do not have to control everything. You only need to control your next response. That is where freedom lives. That is where the shift begins. in not trying to change the entire world in a day, but changing your posture toward it. There will be people who misunderstand your silence, who take your calm as weakness. Let them. You are not here to prove your strength to those who are not ready to understand it. You are here to walk your path with peace, even if it is uphill. And sometimes strength looks like letting go. Not because you are weak, but because you know holding on is draining your soul. Strength is knowing the difference between persistence and self-betrayal. It is standing at the edge of your old habits and choosing not to step back into them. Do not wait for confidence. It will not knock on your door. What comes first is action. Then, slowly, confidence will follow. One day you will wake up and realize the thing that used to scare you no longer has power, not because it disappeared, but because you outgrew it. Growth is not always visible. You will not always have evidence. Sometimes the shift happens deep within. No applause, no finish line, just a quiet knowing that you are not who you used to be. That is the unbreakable part. Not the image others see, but the resilience you carry when no one is watching. And when you fail, because you will let it be fuel, not shame. The ones who succeed are not the ones who never fall. They are the ones who fall often, but get back up faster each time. They learn. They adjust. They keep going. And each time they rise, their foundation gets stronger. Your mind is not your enemy. It is your greatest ally when trained with patience. So speak to it kindly. Guide it gently. Feed it with thoughts that serve the life you want, not the fear you wish to escape. The unbreakable mindset is not built in a day. It is built in moments like this, right now, with a choice. A small one, a quiet one, but one that shifts something inside you forever. The unbreakable mindset shift. It starts to get quiet, not outside you, but inside. The more you train your mind to hold still when chaos tries to pull it apart, the more you realize how little control the world has over your peace. Most people never reach this place, not because it is hidden, but because they stop walking too soon. They turn around the moment the discomfort feels unfamiliar. But discomfort is not a sign to retreat. It is the invitation to go deeper. What happens when you stop reacting? When someone insults you and you do not feel the need to respond? When life throws delays, and instead of panic, you meet it with patience? That is the moment you begin to understand power. Not the kind that needs attention or praise, but the quiet kind that comes from self-respect. The kind that no one can give you and no one can take away. A mind that cannot be broken is not built on pride. It is built on presence. It is built on knowing where you stand even when nothing around you makes sense. And that sense of grounding does not come from books or slogans. It comes from experience, from being in the middle of the mess and learning how to stay calm anyway. The shift happens in layers. You begin by noticing your own voice, the way you speak to yourself when no one is listening. Is it kind? Is it helpful? Is it true? If not, change it. Not once, but again and again, until it becomes your new language. There is a man who used to get angry every day, at little things, traffic, delays, people who did not say thank you. He thought the world was unfair, and maybe it was. But his anger never changed it. It only made him tired. One day, something clicked. He did not feel like reacting anymore. He paused. He breathed. He chose to let it pass. And in that moment, something deeper shifted. The world was still chaotic, but he no longer was. He had stepped out of the loop. This is what many never understand. You cannot control everything that comes your way, but you can always control the space between stimulus and response. That space is your power. And in that space, the mindset shift continues. It becomes your new normal. The unbreakable mindset does not mean you stop feeling. It means you stop surrendering to feelings that lead you nowhere. You let them pass through. You observe them, but you do not give them control. That is the beginning of emotional freedom. Think about how much of your life has been shaped by the fear of what might go wrong. Decisions not taken, opportunities avoided, conversations left unsaid, all because of the voice in your head that whispered, "What if you fail?" But what if you stopped listening to that voice? What if you let it speak, but chose to walk anyway? You would see that fear is just a shadow. It only grows when you feed it. When you walk toward it, it shrinks. You are not meant to live a small life. You are not here to survive quietly. You are here to learn how to move through resistance with awareness. To wake up each day and remind yourself that strength is not something you find. It is something you return to. It begins by removing the noise, social media, opinions, pressure, comparison. None of those things help you build your mind. They only distract you from it. The shift continues when you start feeding your mind with silence, with stillness, with questions that matter. Who am I when everything is taken away? What values do I hold even when no one is watching? What do I choose when no one is there to clap? Some days will feel empty. Some days you will doubt yourself again. That is normal. Growth is not a straight line. But even in those moments, if you stay present, if you remind yourself of who you are becoming, you are still on the path. Forgive yourself often. You will make mistakes. You will forget everything you are learning. You will fall back into old patterns. But each time you catch yourself and return, you are strengthening the path. You are making the comeback faster. That is the real progress. A strong mind does not resist change. It invites it. It understands that every version of you that you let go is making space for a wiser one. There is no shame in transformation. There is only growth. And with growth comes new responsibility to be more intentional with your time, your words, and your energy. Start protecting your peace like it is your most valuable asset. Because it is. Do not explain your calm to people who thrive on chaos. Do not defend your healing to people who have not started theirs. Just walk your path, quietly, firmly, with clarity, and speak less, listen more. Not because your voice is not important, but because your silence holds weight. In a world that cannot stop talking, silence is power. When your presence is rooted in awareness, you do not need to say much. People will feel it. Slow down. Most people are rushing nowhere. They are moving fast to avoid feeling what is beneath the surface. But stillness reveals everything. When you slow down, you start to notice patterns. You begin to catch the moment your energy shifts, the moment your thoughts turn destructive, the moment your peace starts slipping, and that is the moment you reclaim it. The unbreakable mindset is built in those moments. Quiet corrections, gentle redirections, inner conversations that no one else hears. That is the work, and that is where the strength lives. There will be days you feel like nothing is changing, days when you wonder if all this effort is worth it. But then something small happens. You respond differently to a problem. You let go of something faster. You feel lighter. That is how you know it is working. Do not chase motivation. Motivation is fleeting. Build discipline instead. Discipline is showing up when you do not feel like it. It is choosing what serves you over what feels easy. It is building the habit of self-respect even on the days you want to quit. And when you feel lost, return to presence. Breathe. Remind yourself that everything you need is already within you. The mind wants to race. The world wants to pull. But you have the power to pause. You are not just breaking habits. You are breaking generations of conditioning. You are becoming the kind of person who does not just survive pain, but transforms through it. That is rare. That is powerful. Keep going, even when it is quiet. Especially when it is quiet. Because in the silence, your new self is being born. And that self is unshakable. The unbreakable mindset shift. You begin to understand that power is not something loud. It is not found in shouting or showing. It is not about being seen. Real power is quiet. It is the way you respond when everything is shaking. It is the way you choose patience over pride, calm over chaos, focus over fear. There comes a moment when you realize you are no longer the same person you were. The shift is subtle. You do not even notice it until something tests you, a delay, an insult, a disappointment. But instead of breaking, you breathe. Instead of reacting, you remain steady. That is the proof. Not in how strong you appear, but in how much peace you protect. You are not trying to become invincible. You are learning how to stay soft in a world that keeps asking you to harden. There is strength in gentleness. It takes more courage to stay kind than to become cold. But to do that, you need to build walls around your mind, not to keep people out, but to keep your thoughts safe from the noise. And the noise will come from the outside and from within. The outside will tell you what to be, how to live, what to chase. The inside will echo old doubts, but you do not have to answer either. You just return. Return to presence. Return to intention. Return to who you are when everything else fades. You have spent too much of your life asking for permission, waiting to be chosen, hoping someone would validate your worth, but not anymore. You now see that you were never meant to be chosen. You were meant to choose yourself, your path, your peace. There is freedom in that, not the kind that comes from escaping things, but the kind that comes from facing everything and still standing. You begin to value things differently, silence over noise, depth over drama, truth over comfort. And you realize that losing people is not always a loss. Sometimes it is alignment. You do not need to convince anyone of your worth. You do not need to prove that you have changed. You do not need to go back to who you were just to make others comfortable. Your path is sacred. Let it be misunderstood. Growth is lonely sometimes, but loneliness is not the same as being lost. It is a clearing, a space being made for new thoughts, new strength, new connections. The ones who truly see you will find you. You will not need to perform for them. Let go of trying to have it all figured out. Life is not a puzzle to be solved. It is a path to be walked. One step, one breath, one choice at a time. You do not have to know what comes next. You only have to be honest with where you are now. And that honesty is enough. Trust the quiet moments. That is where your mind repairs. That is where it remembers who you are, beneath the pressure, beneath the fear. You are not your mistakes. You are not your past. You are not the voice that tells you you will never be enough. You are the one who watches all of that and still moves forward. And if you fall again, let it be with grace. Do not make your pain personal. Do not attach your identity to your lowest moment. You are allowed to begin again, as many times as it takes. That is not failure. That is freedom. Stop waiting for the big transformation, the overnight change, the dramatic sign. That is not how the mind works. The unbreakable mindset is built like water carving stone. Slowly, quietly, with consistency. It does not look like progress until suddenly it is all you can see. You keep showing up. You keep choosing better thoughts. You keep forgiving yourself. You keep holding boundaries. And slowly, the storm inside you turns into stillness. You no longer panic when things go wrong. You no longer beg for peace. You become it. There will still be hard days. But now you have something you did not have before. You have resilience. Not the loud kind, but the kind that whispers, I can handle this. I have been here before. I know how to come back to myself. You see, nothing outside of you is stable. Not people. Not outcomes. Not plans. But your inner ground can be. If you build it strong enough, no matter what falls, you will not. That is what this shift was always about. Not becoming someone new, but returning to the you that was buried under fear, under pressure, under the noise. You did not gain anything. You simply removed what was not you, and what remained is unshakable. Let this be your rhythm now. Breathe before you react. Pause before you speak. reflect before you judge. Choose before you assume. There is power in stillness. There is wisdom in patience. You are no longer trying to control everything. You are learning to control your attention, and where attention goes, energy flows. Protect that. Direct that. Let it be your guide. Live slow. Think deep. Speak with care. Move with purpose. The world is fast, but you do not have to be. You are not here to race. You are here to align. Let others chase. You remain grounded. Let others doubt. You remain centered. Let others quit. You keep walking, and maybe you are not where you want to be yet. But look back. You are not where you used to be either. That distance is your proof. That progress is your power. Stay on the path. Keep choosing the next best thought. Keep showing up for yourself. You are not broken. You are being rebuilt. And when the pieces come back together, they will be stronger than before. The unbreakable mindset is not a destination. It is a way of being, a way of thinking, a way of holding yourself even when the world tries to pull you apart. You are not fragile. You are not lost. You are not too late. You are exactly where you need to be to begin again. Right here, right now, and this time with a mind that will not break. Silencing the voice that doubts you. What if the only thing standing between you and your next level is not the world, not your past, not even your circumstances, but the voice inside your head that keeps telling you that you are not enough? Not in anger, not in a loud, cruel tone, but in a quiet, familiar voice that speaks like it knows you, like it is trying to protect you. You feel it most when you are about to step forward, when you are just beginning to build something new. When a door opens and your heart leans toward it, this voice steps in. It says, wait. It says you are not ready. It says others are better, faster, stronger, smarter. And maybe it is right, but maybe it is not. That is the trick. Doubt does not announce itself like a villain. It wears the mask of reason. It pretends to be cautious. It sounds like it is trying to help, and that is why it stays so long. A person wakes up with a dream in their chest. It is not loud, but it is persistent. They see signs of it everywhere. But every time they move toward it, something inside pulls them back. Not with force, but with hesitation. They start to prepare. But then comes the thought, what if this is a waste of time? What if I fail again? What if I am just not the kind of person who succeeds? So they wait, they delay, they shrink, and the dream, still alive, grows quieter. This is how doubt works. It does not need to stop you. It just needs to slow you down. It just needs to convince you that trying is too risky. That failure means you're flawed. That discomfort means you are not meant for this. But what if that voice is not wise? What if it is just a memory, a leftover from moments you were hurt, times when your worth was questioned, words someone else said that became your inner language? What if that voice is not a truth teller, but a habit? You do not need to destroy the voice. That only gives it more attention. You need to observe it, catch it in the act. When it says you cannot do something, ask yourself, is this a fact or just a fear? The moment you begin questioning it, you create space. Space for a new voice to speak, a quieter one. One that says maybe you can. Maybe you do not have to be perfect. Maybe trying is enough. You start small. You wake up and follow through on one promise to yourself. You speak kindly when the old voice says you are not doing enough. You write even if it feels messy. You move your body even if your energy is low. You say yes to an opportunity even if your hands shake. And the more you do that, the more the voice begins to change. You begin to realize it is not really about silencing the voice. It is about building a new one that is rooted in presence, not fear, in truth, not memory, in encouragement, not criticism. This new voice does not shout either. It speaks gently. It says, you are allowed to try. You are allowed to learn. You are allowed to begin before you feel ready. It reminds you that doubt is not a sign to stop. It is just a sign that you are stretching. You start to collect proof. Every time you do the thing you were afraid of, you create a new reference point. A new memory that says, I showed up, I tried, I did not break, and slowly, your identity begins to shift. You stop seeing yourself as someone who doubts and start seeing yourself as someone who keeps going anyway. There is something powerful in that shift. Not because the doubt is gone, but because it no longer controls you. It no longer decides. It may still speak, but you do not listen in the same way. You start to build rituals around your new voice. Morning stillness, journaling your fears, saying your truths out loud, keeping promises, resting without guilt. These are not just actions, they are declarations. Messages to your nervous system that you are safe now, that you are not at war with yourself anymore. You learn to stop arguing with the voice of doubt. You learn to let it pass like weather. You say, I hear you, but I am still going. And then you go, and you stop waiting for the doubt to disappear. You realize that courage is not the absence of doubt, it is the decision to move with it. It is the quiet choice to show up messy, unsure, afraid, and still take the step. You begin to trust your own pace. You stop comparing your timeline to anyone else's. You realize that someone else's confidence is not your measurement. You are not behind. You are not too late. You are right on time for your own unfolding. And you begin to see that the voice that doubted you was never trying to ruin you. It was trying to keep you small because small felt safe. But you are not meant to live small. You are here to stretch, to grow, to walk into rooms you once thought were not meant for you. So you forgive the voice. You thank it for trying to protect you. And then you release it. Every day, if you have to. Because this is not a one-time act. It is a practice. And with each practice, your posture changes. You speak differently. You stand more open. You move with clarity. Not because the doubt is gone, but because the belief is stronger. You learn to meet yourself with softness, to offer compassion before correction, to pause before judgment. You are not your past. You are not your mistakes. You are not your thoughts. You are the awareness behind them. You are the space where change can happen. The voice that doubted you may never go silent forever, but it will fade, because you will have replaced it with something stronger. A voice of truth, a voice of choice, a voice of presence. And when you hear the doubt again, you will not panic. You will smile, because you will remember this is just the sign that you are on the edge of something new, and this time you will not turn back. You will step forward with a voice that says, I am allowed to try. I am allowed to grow. I am allowed to become. You wake up, and it is already there. That quiet voice. It does not scream. It whispers in a way that sounds reasonable. You are not ready. You are going to embarrass yourself. You are too late. Everyone else is ahead. These thoughts are not shouted at you. They arrive gently, which is what makes them so dangerous. They do not feel like attacks. They feel like truth. But the more you begin to notice them, the more you understand they follow a pattern. A script your mind has rehearsed for years. It does not care about facts. It does not look at how far you have come. It simply pulls you backward every time you try to move forward. Not because you are weak, but because that voice was never yours to begin with. It was planted there. By failure, by fear, by people who doubted you before you ever had a chance to believe in yourself. And you kept repeating it until it became familiar. But familiarity is not the same as truth. And just because a thought has been repeated for years does not mean it deserves to stay. You start to shift when you become aware of what you are telling yourself. When you catch the moments you talk yourself out of doing something because of what might go wrong. When you pause before saying, I cannot, and ask yourself why you believe that. What evidence are you using? Whose voice is that really? You begin to see how much of your potential is trapped inside of assumptions. You are not afraid of trying. You are afraid of what trying might say about you if you fail. But failure is not identity. It is feedback. It is redirection. It is the cost of growth. So instead of asking, "What if I fail?" you begin to ask, "What if I succeed in a way I cannot yet imagine? What if things work out better than I planned? What if this time I stay committed long enough to see it happen?" The voice inside will respond quickly. It will remind you of all the times you stopped, all the times things fell apart. It will list every doubt like a checklist. But now you listen differently. You no longer confuse that voice with wisdom. You hear it and still act. That is where transformation begins, not in perfect confidence, but in the practice of moving anyway, in choosing to stay with your goals even when your thoughts try to pull you away from them, in staying focused on the direction, not the emotion. Every small act becomes a declaration. You finish a task and prove to yourself that you follow through. You speak up and show that your voice matters. You share your work even when it feels exposed. Each moment becomes a seed, and over time they grow into trust. You learn to expect doubt, not fear it. You understand that it is just a part of the process, a signal that you are stepping outside your comfort zone, a sign that you are doing something real. And real things often begin in discomfort. There is something freeing about knowing that doubt is not something you need to fix, just something you need to stop obeying. It will come. You let it. But you do not hand over the keys anymore, and slowly you begin to hear another voice, one that was buried for a long time, the voice of your inner knowing. It does not try to convince. It does not panic. It simply says, "Keep going. You are capable. You are growing. You are enough right now, even as you become more." You build your life around that voice now. You give it more space. You write words that affirm it. You surround yourself with people who speak from it. You return to it when everything feels loud. And when the old voice shows up again, you are ready. You do not argue. You do not react. You acknowledge it, and then you redirect. You remember who you are becoming. You remember what you have already overcome. You remember the times you kept going and how those moments rewired your entire mind. That is what it means to silence the voice of doubt. Not to make it vanish, but to make it irrelevant. To stop making it the authority. To choose belief instead of fear. Progress instead of perfection. Curiosity instead of control. You are allowed to evolve. You are allowed to stop listening to the voice that kept you small. You are allowed to build a new story. And the more you act from that place, the more powerful it becomes. Until one day, you face something that would have stopped you before, and now you move through it like it is nothing. Not because it is easy, but because you have become someone different. Someone who hears the voice of doubt, but no longer lets it lead. Someone who chooses trust. Someone who remembers that every step forward, no matter how small, is enough. Because you are not just building a habit, you are building a life. And this time, it is not shaped by fear. It is shaped by choice, by courage, by presence, and that changes everything. There is a point where the old voice becomes quieter, not because it disappears, but because something within you has grown louder, stronger, more rooted. You no longer lean on the voice that tells you to stay small. You no longer ask it for permission. You begin to trust the quiet pull of your own path, even when the steps ahead are unclear. Doubt still visits, but it no longer sits at the head of the table. It becomes background noise, a familiar hum that you have learned to live with without letting it lead. You have changed the way you respond to it, and that response is what shapes your future. You stop seeking constant validation from the outside. You stop waiting for someone to tell you that you are allowed to begin. You realize that the only voice that needs to say yes is your own. And the more you say yes to yourself, the more natural it feels. You begin to recognize how much time you once spent second-guessing, overthinking, starting and stopping, editing yourself before anyone else could, all to avoid failure, judgment, or rejection. But now you understand something deeper. You cannot avoid those things by shrinking. You only delay your own becoming. There is freedom in realizing that failure is not your enemy, that rejection is not the end, that making mistakes does not make you unworthy. These are all signs of motion, of participation, of life. And you are no longer here to play small, just to feel safe. You begin to measure progress differently, not by how flawless your steps are, but by how often you choose to step forward despite the fear. Not by how loud your confidence is, but by how deeply you show up for yourself, even when the voice inside still questions you. That is what real strength looks like. It is not about always being sure. It is about being steady, being present, being consistent. It is choosing to keep building even when you feel uncertain. It is standing in your truth without needing to convince anyone else. The mind that once tried to stop you now starts to adapt. You are training it, and it is listening. Each time you override that familiar loop of doubt with action, the path becomes clearer. The resistance becomes lighter. The voice that once held you back begins to lose its grip. You stop labeling yourself based on temporary emotions. Just because you feel fear does not mean you are a fearful person. Just because you feel insecure does not mean you are incapable. Emotions pass, but identity stays. So you begin to build an identity that is based on choice, not reaction. You become someone who follows through, who stays the course, who honors their word to themselves. You become someone who knows their own worth, even on the quiet days when nothing seems to be working. You become someone who builds from the inside out, and you do not need everyone to see it. You do not need applause. You do not need constant reassurance, because the shift has happened within. The voice of doubt is not gone, but it no longer defines you. It no longer shapes your steps. It no longer has the final word. You wake up and still feel hesitation, but you move anyway. You begin a project even if you are not sure where it will go. You speak up even if your voice shakes. You rest when you need to, without guilt. You show up as you are, not who you think the world expects you to be. This is the power of returning to yourself, of choosing your voice again and again, not out of arrogance, but out of alignment, out of truth, out of a deep, quiet, knowing that you are enough now, and also growing into more, and the world begins to respond to you differently, not because it has changed, but because you have. You move differently. You speak with a stillness that is unshakable. You carry your presence into every room, not with loudness, but with grounded clarity. You understand now that you were never meant to eliminate doubt. You were meant to rise above it, to live alongside it, but not listen to it, to hear it, but not believe it, to feel it, but not obey it. You are no longer afraid of the voice, because you have built something stronger. You have built awareness. You have built resilience. You have built trust. And every day you choose that, the voice that once held you back becomes smaller, not silent, but powerless, because now you know who you are, and you are not the person who stops at fear. You are the person who moves through it. That is the final shift. Not perfection, not complete silence, but peace, a steady, quiet peace that no doubt can touch. And from that peace, you keep going. The anti-victim philosophy. What if the real prison is not the one built by your circumstances, but the one built by your story? A story where you always lose, where others always win, where life happens to you, and never because of you. The story of the victim is seductive. It offers comfort. It offers attention. It gives you a reason to stay still. But what it takes in return is much more. It takes your power. It takes your growth. It takes your future. There is a quiet pattern that forms when someone sees themselves only through the lens of what has been done to them. They begin to see every challenge as a personal attack, every setback as confirmation, every person as a threat. They build an identity around being wronged, and with time, they begin to protect that identity, because letting it go would mean starting over. It would mean facing the possibility that healing is their responsibility, not someone else's. The anti-victim philosophy does not deny pain. It does not ignore injustice. It does not pretend that life is easy or fair. It simply says that while you did not choose the pain, you still get to choose what comes next. It means accepting what happened without accepting that it defines you. It means acknowledging your wounds without letting them control your vision. A person spends years waiting for closure. They wait for an apology that may never come, for recognition, for fairness. They play the scene over and over in their head, hoping to make sense of it, but in that waiting, they become stuck. Their life does not move forward, because emotionally, they are still standing in the moment of impact, still bleeding from a cut that the world has already forgotten. You can see it in their posture, in the way they speak, in the way they hold on to old pain like it is part of who they are. But the truth is, you can mourn the pain without becoming it. You can remember what happened without staying in it. You can carry the lesson without carrying the weight. The anti-victim philosophy is the slow, deliberate decision to reclaim authorship of your life. To wake up and ask not why this happened, but what now. To stop waiting for someone else to make it right, because the truth is, they may never, and your freedom cannot depend on someone else's growth. This shift begins with accountability, not the kind that blames yourself for things outside your control, but the kind that says, "This is my life now. These are my choices now. These are my thoughts, my responses, my direction." It is the moment you stop reliving the old story and start rewriting the current one. You begin to see patterns. You realize how often you shrink in the presence of challenge, not because you are weak, but because you learn that being small kept you safe. But safety is not the same as peace. Safety built on avoidance is a cage. It keeps the pain out, but it also keeps the possibilities out. And the anti-victim philosophy is about unlocking that gate. You stop blaming the world for not handing you what you deserve. You stop expecting life to owe you something in return for your suffering. You start to build from where you are, slowly, quietly, powerfully. And each day you do, the victim inside becomes smaller. There is a calm power in the person who no longer needs to be right about how hard it was. They have already made peace with it. They have already let go of needing to explain. They are too busy building something new to keep looking backward. Their strength is not loud. It is quiet. It is in their focus, in their consistency, in their refusal to stay wounded. The voice of the victim says, "I cannot do this because of what happened." The voice of the anti-victim says, "I will do this because of what happened." One sees limitation. The other sees fuel. One waits. The other creates. You learn to become the one who creates, who turns pain into clarity, who uses setbacks as leverage, who stands up without needing applause. You stop performing your pain and begin expressing your purpose. And it is not about denying emotion. It is about directing it. You are allowed to feel, to hurt, to process. But you do not unpack your life in that space. You do not turn it into your identity. You feel it, then move. You process it, then shift. You honor the wound, then release it. Some people will not understand this shift. They will say you are cold, that you do not care. But they do not see the weight you had to let go of to walk like this. They do not see the battles you had to stop fighting to finally find peace. You are not cold. You are clear. You are not distant. You are focused. You begin to choose differently. You choose to speak without needing validation. You choose to take action without the guarantee of success. You choose to heal without waiting for someone to say they are sorry. And in that choosing, you grow stronger. One morning, you wake up and feel something different. Not joy, not pride, but quiet certainty. You feel that you are in control of your life again. Not because everything is fixed, but because you have stopped handing your power to people who do not know what to do with it. You have stopped blaming your past for your present. You have stopped holding on to pain just to prove a point. You have stopped needing to be seen as a victim in order to feel worthy of love. You no longer ask who hurt you. You ask what you learned. You no longer ask what you lost. You ask what you are building. You no longer ask why it happened. You ask who you are becoming. That is the anti-victim philosophy. It is not loud. It is not dramatic. It is steady. It is present. It is the quiet decision to stop reacting and start rising. And you rise, without needing the past to change, without needing the world to understand. You rise because the power is yours now, and this time you are not giving it away. Somewhere along the way you realize that freedom is not something the world gives you, it is something you claim. Not by demanding justice from everyone who wronged you, but by removing their power over you. The anti-victim philosophy lives in that quiet moment when you say, "They may have shaped part of my story, but they will not write the ending." There is a subtle shift that happens when you stop asking for the world to change and start asking how you can respond better to it. Not because the world is always right, not because people always treat you fairly, but because carrying resentment is a heavier weight than carrying responsibility. You are not responsible for what others did, but you are responsible for who you become next. That truth can be uncomfortable. It is easier to point outward. It is easier to say, "I would be further along if they had helped me. I would be happier if they had not hurt me. I would be more confident if they had supported me." And maybe that is true. But you cannot build your life on what others failed to give you. You can only build from where you are with what you have now. It begins with acceptance, not passive acceptance that says nothing matters, but active acceptance that says, "This is what happened, and I will no longer argue with it. I will no longer try to edit the past. I will use it. I will learn from it, and I will move forward because of it." You stop needing to win the argument. You stop needing people to agree with your pain. You stop needing someone else to feel bad before you feel good. You start choosing your energy, your attention, your peace, and something powerful begins to form. A new identity, one that is not rooted in being wounded, one that does not find power in being pitied, one that finds strength in choosing peace when pain would be easier. This is not about pretending you are fine. It is not about hiding what happened. It is about refusing to be reduced by it. The person you are becoming does not need to carry the weight of every injustice to prove how strong they are. They prove it by walking forward with nothing but clarity. You begin to see every situation differently. You stop asking why people are so cruel, and you start asking why their cruelty affects you so deeply. You stop wondering why life is unfair, and you begin asking what you can do with the life you have. That is not denial. That is discipline. It is training your mind to focus on what you can change instead of being consumed by what you cannot. And as your focus changes, so does your world. The victim mindset waits for things to be easy before it acts. The anti-victim mindset acts even when things are hard. It shows up when it is tired. It speaks up when it is afraid. It keeps going when the results are invisible. It does not seek reward. It seeks responsibility. You stop looking for motivation. You build momentum. You stop chasing inspiration. You build habits. You stop needing perfect conditions. You use what is in front of you. That is how you become untouchable. People will notice something different about you. They will feel it in your presence. Not in what you say, but in what you no longer react to, in what no longer triggers you, in what no longer takes you out of character, because you have rewritten your role. You are no longer the person who explains why they cannot. You are the one who finds a way. You are no longer the one who breaks at inconvenience. You bend, but you do not break. You adjust, but you do not collapse. This does not mean you never feel anger or sadness or fear. It means you do not let those emotions drive the car. You let them ride along, but your decisions come from a different place now, from purpose, from direction, from values, and that inner clarity becomes your shield. Not a wall that keeps the world out, but a filter that keeps your focus in. You become less reactive, more reflective, less attached to being understood, more rooted in being intentional. The voice inside begins to change. It no longer says, "Why me?" It says, "Try me." It no longer says, "I cannot believe this happened." It says, "I will figure it out." It no longer says, I need to be saved. It says, I know how to rise. And the rising is not dramatic. It is slow. It is built one boundary at a time, one choice at a time, one moment of self-trust at a time, until one day you realize you are no longer afraid of your past. You are no longer shaped by it. You have outgrown the person who needed it to make sense. You now understand that your power was never lost. It was just unclaimed, buried beneath blame, hidden under hurt, and now you are ready to take it back. Fully, quietly, completely. This is not the kind of strength that needs to be seen. It is not about appearing tough. It is about being so rooted in your peace that nothing can move you without your permission. You know who you are now, and you know what you are not. You are not a victim of life. You are not defined by what they did. You are not stuck in the story you once believed. You are here. You are present. You are choosing again. And this time, you are choosing your power. You begin to walk differently, not with arrogance, but with quiet certainty. Not with the need to prove anything, but with the knowledge that you are no longer living from your wounds. You are building from your wisdom now. And wisdom does not speak loudly. It speaks with presence. There are days when the old feelings still rise, the unfairness, the regret, the memory of what should have been, but something is different now. You do not invite them to stay. You let them pass. You no longer turn them into stories that define you. You see them for what they are, passing thoughts, old echoes, moments that shaped you but no longer own you. The anti-victim philosophy becomes clearer the more you practice it. It is not a one-time awakening. It is a daily decision. It is choosing to respond differently to the same situations that used to break you. It is the quiet refusal to go back to the version of you that lived on reaction and blame. You stop taking things personally. Not because people are always kind, but because their words no longer have permission to enter your inner world. You decide what gets in now. You protect your space, your thoughts, your emotional clarity. And in that protection, you find peace. Peace is not the absence of struggle. It is the presence of ownership. When you stop expecting the world to carry your healing, you become lighter. You become free. Because now, your healing belongs to you, and no one can take that away. You no longer tell the same stories, not because they were not real, but because they are no longer relevant. You have grown beyond them, and growth is not loud. It is seen in your silence, in your ability to let go of the need to be seen as someone who overcame. You no longer need that recognition. You are too focused on becoming. There's a softness that returns when you release the grip of the victim mindset, a softness toward yourself, a willingness to forgive. Not just others, but also the version of you who did not know better, the one who stayed too long, who tolerated too much, who thought survival was the same as living. You do not judge that version of you. You thank them, because they did the best they could with what they knew, but you know more now, and with that knowing comes a quiet responsibility, to rise, to lead yourself, to be the one who breaks the pattern, and you do break it, gently, consistently, thoughtfully. You stop comparing your struggle to others. You stop using pain as a way to measure your worth. You do not need to be the most wounded to be worthy of healing. You already are. Simply because you exist. Simply because you are choosing now to walk a different way. You stop using your story to earn space in rooms that never saw your value. You stop shrinking to make others comfortable. You speak with intention. You move with clarity. You love without begging. You create without waiting. This philosophy is not about being hard. It is about being whole. It is not about pretending everything is okay. It is about knowing that even when it is not, you are okay. Because you are grounded. Because you are connected to something deeper than circumstance. You are connected to your choice. You begin to live more slowly. Not because you are afraid, but because you are intentional. You are no longer chasing. You are attracting, not by force, but by alignment. You know what you stand for now. You know what you allow, what you protect, what you walk away from. And there will still be people who do not understand, who try to pull you back into the old dynamics, who want you to explain your piece. But you do not argue anymore. You do not fight for what is already yours. You do not water yourself down for people who are still drinking from shallow wells. You rise differently now. You rise in rooms that once made you feel small, and you do not need to take up space to prove your worth. You simply are. That is enough. And when something goes wrong, when life becomes heavy again, you do not spiral. You pause. You breathe. You remember who you are. You remember what you have already overcome. And you respond from that place, from wisdom, from peace, from presence. That is what separates the victim from the creator. One lives in reaction, the other lives in response. One waits for life to change, the other becomes the change. You are no longer at the mercy of other people's choices. You are no longer shaped by what you could not control. You are shaped by how you rise, how you recover, how you return. You keep returning to your truth, that you are enough, that you are worthy, that you are allowed to grow without explaining it, that you are allowed to move on without apology, that you are allowed to be okay even when others are not. The victim mindset says, I need the world to change before I can be okay. The anti-victim philosophy says, I choose to be okay, no matter what the world is doing. And that choice is power. It is not about having all the answers. It is about showing up for yourself in the unknown, trusting that you will figure it out as you go, trusting that your inner voice is louder than the noise around you. This is not a performance. It is a practice. It is showing up for yourself again and again, even when no one is watching. It is honoring your boundaries, your voice, your needs, not with guilt, not with shame, but with calm certainty. You now know what it feels like to carry pain and not be controlled by it, to face challenge and not become bitter, to walk through darkness and still choose light. This is the final shift. Not a moment of arrival, but a lifelong return to yourself, to your strength, to your freedom. And this time, you are not waiting for anything outside of you to change, because the change is already within you. And from that place, you move forward. The discipline loop. What if your whole life could change? Not through a breakthrough moment, not through motivation, not through some sudden spark of clarity, but through something far quieter, something unglamorous, something that does not impress anyone at first. What if your life is waiting to change through the repetition of small acts? Acts so simple they seem invisible, but done enough times, they become powerful. That is the loop. That is the discipline loop. It starts the first time you do something you do not feel like doing just because you said you would. You are tired, but you still show up. You are unsure, but you still begin. No one is watching. There is no applause. But you do it anyway, and you do it again the next day, and the next, until something begins to change. Not outside, but inside. You start to feel different, not bigger, not louder, just more steady, more clear, more grounded, because now your actions are not based on emotion. They are based on intention, and intention is the quiet engine behind transformation. The loop is simple. You decide, you act, you repeat. That is it. No hacks, no tricks. Just steady movement in the direction you said matters to you. But simple is not easy, because the loop has enemies. One of them is the mind that tells you to rest when you have not earned it. Another is the emotion that convinces you that your progress is not working fast enough. And the most dangerous one is the voice that says discipline is too rigid, too harsh, too much. But the truth is, discipline is not punishment. It is the purest form of self-respect. It says, I care about my future enough to show up for it today. It says, I care about the kind of person I am becoming, even when it is hard. And it does get hard. Discipline will test you. It will show you every excuse you have ever used. It will bring you face to face with your habits. It will ask you to act, even when no part of you feels ready. But the more you answer, the easier it becomes to stay inside the loop. And that is the secret. The loop does not need to be intense. It needs to be consistent. You do not have to make giant leaps. You only have to keep moving. Because every time you repeat the action, you reinforce the identity. You are teaching your mind, I am the kind of person who follows through. You build trust with yourself this way, and that trust becomes your power. Because now, even when you do not feel strong, you act strong. Even when you doubt, you move. Even when results are invisible, you stay with it. Not because of hope, but because of alignment. Discipline becomes a kind of rhythm, a steady beat underneath the noise of life. It keeps you focused when the world tries to pull you into distraction. It keeps you grounded when things go wrong. It gives you something to come back to when motivation fades. And motivation always fades. That is why the loop is so important. Motivation is a spark, but discipline is the fire. It keeps burning, even when the weather changes, even when life becomes chaotic, even when your mind starts looking for reasons to quit. You realize something powerful the more you stay with the loop. You do not need to feel inspired every day. You just need to remember your reason. Your reason pulls you through the boredom, the fatigue, the resistance. And the more you return to it, the more stable it becomes. There is beauty in that simplicity. You stop chasing energy. You stop waiting for the perfect time. You start showing up, exactly as you are, again and again. And in that showing up, you change. You become more disciplined, but you also become more peaceful. Because now you trust yourself. You do not second-guess your path. You do not argue with your choices. You are clear, you are committed, and that clarity becomes your calm. Others may not understand. They may say you are too rigid, too focused, too disciplined. Let them say that. Because they do not see the freedom you have built. They do not feel the peace that comes from knowing you are no longer lost in your own habits. You are no longer held hostage by distraction. You are no longer ruled by feelings that change with the weather. You are steady now. You are rooted. You are in the loop. And the loop begins to expand. It touches other areas of your life. You eat better, not because someone told you to, but because you respect your body. You sleep better, not because you are forced to, but because you care about your energy. You speak differently, walk differently, live differently. Because everything starts to align, not perfectly. You still miss some days. You still break the loop. But now, you know how to return. And that is the difference. You do not spiral. You do not fall apart. You pause. You reset. You return. And every time you return, the loop becomes stronger. It becomes who you are. The discipline loop is not about being extreme. It is about being intentional. It is not about being hard on yourself. It is about being honest with yourself. It is not about perfection. It is about presence, showing up, staying with it, building momentum, not from force, but from integrity. And over time, you look back and realize how far you have come. Not because of one big moment, but because of every small one, every quiet morning you chose to act, every tired night you stayed with the process, every excuse you walked past, every doubt you silenced through movement. That is what builds you. That is what shapes you. You no longer wait to feel ready. You no longer argue with the path. You walk it, and that walk becomes who you are. That rhythm becomes your root. That choice becomes your freedom. This is the discipline loop. And once you step into it, everything changes. Quietly, powerfully, permanently. There comes a point where you are no longer forcing yourself to do the right thing. You are drawn to it. Not because you are chasing some perfection, but because it feels natural now. You wake up and act. You begin without overthinking. You move without the same inner debate. It is not that discipline becomes easy, it is that it becomes familiar. It becomes home. In the beginning, you had to push. You had to talk yourself into showing up. You had to fight against resistance every single day. But now, something inside you has shifted. You still feel resistance, but it does not have the same power anymore. You see it for what it is, a reflex, not a rule. You feel the urge to delay, and then you move anyway. You hear the voice that says to skip today, and then you act anyway. And in that space between the thought and the action, you reclaim yourself again. This is how discipline changes you, quietly, deeply. It reshapes the way your mind responds to discomfort. It rewrites what your body does in moments of uncertainty. It teaches you that strength is not something you show, it is something you repeat. And with enough repetition, it becomes your new default. You begin to notice that your identity is no longer tied to the version of you that used to quit. You no longer see yourself as the person who breaks promises to yourself. You are not trying to be disciplined. You are disciplined, not because you are special, but because you chose to stay inside the loop long enough to become someone new. There is peace in this place, not because life has become easier, but because you have become more reliable. You know how to carry yourself through a bad mood, through exhaustion, through doubt. You do not need a perfect environment to take the next step. You just need to remember your reason, and your reason becomes sacred. It is no longer just a goal on paper. It is a part of who you are, the promise you made to your future self, the quiet agreement between the person you are today and the person you are becoming. And every action you take in alignment with that promise reinforces it, makes it stronger, makes you stronger. You stop looking at discipline as a sacrifice. You see it as a gift you give yourself, a form of self-love that does not always feel warm or easy, but always leads you back to clarity. You also stop needing everything to happen quickly. You stop needing instant proof that what you are doing is working. You understand now that progress is rarely loud. It is not always visible. It is often boring. It is built in the background while the world keeps spinning. You keep showing up, even when no one claps, even when there is no obvious reward. Because you know what is being built is deeper than what anyone else can see. You know the quiet confidence that comes from knowing you do not quit when it gets hard. You do not break when it gets slow. You stay. You continue. And that consistency begins to open doors, not always dramatic ones, but quiet ones. A little more clarity in your thinking, a little more energy in your body, a little more space between reaction and response. The loop does not just make you productive, it makes you centered. It gives you something to return to when life gets messy. Even your failures start to feel different. They do not destroy you anymore. You no longer tie your identity to the outcome. You understand that missing a day is not the same as losing the loop. You fall off, but now you know how to get back on. Without shame, without guilt, just with a clear decision to return. This is where discipline becomes sustainable, when it is no longer driven by fear or pressure, but by alignment. When it is not something you have to do, but something you want to maintain, because it makes you feel in control, because it keeps you close to your purpose. You start to feel grateful for the loop, for the repetition, for the slow days, because those are the days that sharpen you. Anyone can act when they are inspired, but to act when you are not, that is where the strength is built. The world may not reward this kind of quiet discipline. It loves big moments, before and after stories, instant results. But you have grown past that now. You are not chasing applause. You are building something deeper, a life that works, a mind that holds steady, a heart that stays open even when tested. You may still doubt yourself sometimes. That is human. But doubt no longer means stop. It just means check in, reflect, adjust, and then continue. Discipline does not remove all chaos, but it gives you something stable to hold on to when chaos arrives. It becomes your anchor, your rhythm, your inner compass. And you begin to see that the loop does not trap you. It frees you. It frees you from having to negotiate with yourself every day. It frees you from the constant tug of distraction. It frees you from the guilt of promises not kept. You are free now, not because life is easy, but because you are consistent. And consistency is a kind of quiet freedom, a way of saying, I will not betray myself today. I will show up for what matters. I will keep moving in the direction that feels true. That is the discipline loop, and it keeps going. Not because you are forced, but because now it is simply who you are. There is a deeper stillness that comes when the loop is no longer just about action, but about identity. You no longer tell yourself, I am trying to be disciplined. You simply live in a way that reflects discipline. It is not loud. It does not demand attention. It exists in the background of your days, guiding you like a quiet rhythm you can always return to. You stop needing reminders to act. You just act. You stop needing to feel a certain way before starting. You just start. You stop needing to win every day. You simply stay in the game. The loop is not perfection. It is not flawless execution. It is loyalty. Loyalty to your own future. Loyalty to your own standards. Loyalty to the kind of person you said you would be when no one was watching. Discipline begins to soften you, not into weakness, but into steadiness, into grace. You forgive faster. You restart quicker. You do not spiral when something goes wrong. You have been here before. You know how to continue. This is the quiet superpower of the loop. It does not just build goals. It builds resilience. It gives you a baseline to fall back on, a grounded space where your energy is not wasted on guilt or delay. You just return. No drama, no explanation, just presence. You realize something else, too. You are no longer addicted to intensity. You no longer crave the big push, the loud breakthrough, the all-or-nothing moment. You respect the gentle path now, the one that keeps moving, no matter how small the steps. You see now that the most lasting change is almost always the slowest, but also the deepest. You stop chasing short-term wins. You are playing the long game now, the game where consistency beats talent, where small efforts compound, where patience outlasts pressure. You are no longer obsessed with results. You are in love with effort. You are no longer attached to when it happens. You are committed to making it happen. Even your relationship with discomfort begins to shift. You no longer avoid it. You understand it now. You know it is part of the loop, part of the path. You breathe through it. You stay with it. You do not make it mean anything bad. You do not label it as failure. It is just another piece of the process. There will still be days when you want to quit. Days when you question the point. Days when progress feels invisible. But now, you know better. You know that growth often hides in those exact moments. The moments when your emotions scream for escape, but you choose to stay. And staying is powerful. Not because it looks impressive, but because it tells your mind, we do not break our word. We do not disappear on ourselves. We show up. You begin to carry yourself differently. Not with ego, but with calm. Not with pressure, but with purpose. You move through your day with quiet focus. You handle your priorities without the weight of needing to be perfect. You know that a small action done consistently matters more than a grand gesture done once. The loop becomes a kind of sanctuary. A place you return to when everything else is unclear, when emotions are high, when the noise is loud. The loop is still here. It waits for you. It welcomes you. It holds you. It is not about strict rules. It is not about punishing yourself. It is about returning to your path, again and again, with care, with patience, with the belief that you are worth the effort. That belief becomes unshakable, because now you have lived it. You have earned it. Every day you showed up when it was hard. Every moment you stayed with the process when it would have been easier to quit. You built that belief not by talking about it, but by living it. This is the part of the loop that no one sees, the part where your self-respect deepens, the part where your trust in yourself becomes unbreakable. You know you will keep going, not because you always feel strong, but because you have chosen not to give up on yourself. And that decision radiates into every part of your life. Your work improves, your energy shifts, your relationships grow stronger, not because you are perfect, but because you are present, because you are aligned, because you are in rhythm. There is no finish line now. You are not racing toward some grand moment. You are simply living from discipline, breathing in consistency, walking with purpose. Each step is a quiet reminder of who you have become. You still fall, but you rise faster. You still feel doubt, but you move anyway. You still get tired, but you rest and return. That is the essence of the loop. It is not about always winning, it is about always returning. And with each return, you become more whole, more grounded, more unstoppable. The loop continues, because so do you. What if emotions had weight? Not in a poetic sense, but in a very real and measurable way. What if every thought you allowed to settle, every feeling you refused to release, slowly added invisible heaviness to your mind, to your body, to your life? You carry it without knowing. It becomes harder to get up, harder to breathe freely, harder to move forward. Not because your life is broken, but because your emotional gravity has become too dense. Some people wake up and feel tired before they even begin their day, not because their schedule is too full, but because their mind is too full. Old frustrations, quiet fears, lingering sadness. Emotions they never gave themselves the time or space to process. It weighs on them, slows them down. It becomes part of their posture, their tone, their silence. Emotional gravity is the invisible force that pulls you back into patterns you thought you had outgrown. It is the tug you feel when you try to grow, to change, to move, and something inside pulls you back into the familiar. It is not always dramatic. It is often subtle. You want to try something new, but your old fears say, stay safe. You want to forgive, but resentment says, hold on. You want to relax, but anxiety says, stay alert. To control emotional gravity is not to erase your feelings. It is not to numb them. It is to learn how to move through them without being pulled under by them. It is to feel fully without becoming trapped. To acknowledge what is heavy without making it your home. This kind of control begins with awareness. You start to notice when something feels heavier than it should, a small comment that ruins your whole day, a memory that keeps replaying even though you want to let it go, a sense of guilt that never really belonged to you, but you carry it anyway. These are signs. Signals that gravity is increasing and your emotional space needs clearing. You do not clear it by force. You do not rush it. You begin gently. You name what you feel without judgment. You ask yourself, is this mine to carry? Is this from today or from years ago? Have I given myself permission to let this go? Most people never ask those questions. They treat every emotion like a permanent resident instead of a passing cloud. But emotions are visitors. They bring messages. And when the message is received, the emotion can move on. The problem is when we hold on to the emotion long after the message has been understood. That is when gravity builds. That is when the weight begins to shape your life. There is a way to release that weight. And it starts with creating space. Not physical space, but mental and emotional space. Silence becomes a tool. Breathing becomes a reset. Stillness becomes a doorway. You stop filling every moment with noise. You stop escaping into distraction. You sit with yourself. You ask what you are holding. You wait for the answer. Sometimes the answer comes as a thought. Sometimes as a memory. Sometimes as a deep exhale you did not know you needed. In that moment, something shifts. You are not just reacting anymore. You are observing. You are choosing. Emotional gravity becomes controllable when you stop being afraid to feel. When you stop rushing to fix every emotion the second it shows up. When you give yourself time to understand where it is coming from and what it is asking you to do. Some emotions need to be expressed. Others need to be examined. Some need to be released. Others need to be transformed. And none of that can happen if you are always in motion, if you are always distracting yourself, if you are always avoiding the stillness where healing begins. You start to learn that lightness is not the absence of emotion. It is the ability to move through emotion with grace. You feel deeply, but you do not sink. You carry memories, but they do not define you. You experience pain, but it does not control your path. This shift is not immediate. It is a practice, a way of being. You notice when something feels too heavy. You take time to understand it. You let yourself feel it fully, and then you release it. Through breath, through writing, through silence, through movement. Whatever helps you let go. Letting go does not mean pretending it never happened. It means deciding that it no longer needs to hold you down, that you are allowed to feel differently now, that you are allowed to rise. You begin to check in with yourself throughout the day. Is this thought helping or hurting? Is this feeling telling me the truth or just repeating an old pattern? You do not believe everything your mind tells you. You question it, you investigate it, and you choose again. That is the heart of emotional gravity control. Choice, not reaction. You do not let the mood of the morning ruin the rest of the day. You do not let a single event dictate your entire sense of self. You experience, you process, you move forward. Over time, you build a kind of inner spaciousness, a calm that is not shaken easily. People notice something different about you. They cannot name it, but they feel it. You are lighter, more present, less reactive. Not because your life is perfect, but because you are no longer carrying what no longer belongs to you. You start to move differently. You speak with care. You think with clarity. You rest without guilt. You create without pressure. Your energy becomes clean, not because you suppress your emotions, but because you understand them, you respect them, you let them move through. There will still be moments when you feel heavy. That is normal. That is human. But now, you have tools. You know how to return, how to reset, how to breathe again. Emotional gravity no longer controls you. You control your relationship to it. And in that control, you find freedom. Not the kind that comes from escape, but the kind that comes from knowing you can face whatever rises within you and still stay standing, still stay open, still stay light. That is emotional gravity control. And it is available to you, always. There is a moment when you start to recognize how certain emotions linger long after the situation is over. Something small happens, and your whole system responds as if it is something big. You feel heavier than the moment deserves. That is the echo of past weight. Emotional gravity does not always come from the present. Often it is the accumulation of what was never released. You are not just feeling this day. You are carrying every day that felt like this one. Every old memory that shares the same shape. Every unresolved emotion that never had space to breathe. This is how emotional gravity sneaks in. It does not shout. It accumulates, quietly, layer by layer. Controlling that gravity means learning to separate what is yours from what is old. You start by asking simple questions. Is this feeling about now, or is it about before? Is this weight fresh, or is it familiar? Am I responding to this person, or am I reacting to someone from the past who once made me feel the same way? The more you ask, the clearer you become. You are not avoiding your feelings. You are learning to organize them. Just like a cluttered room makes it hard to move, a cluttered emotional space makes it hard to breathe, hard to think clearly, hard to respond with presence. You begin to see the connection between emotional weight and decision-making, how your choices are shaped by the emotions you have not processed, how hesitation is often not about logic, but about fear you have not named, how anger is sometimes a cover for sadness, how control is sometimes a shield for past helplessness, and with this awareness, you no longer react blindly. You pause. You create space between stimulus and response. You feel the tension rise, and you ask, what is really happening here? Not outside of me, but inside of me. This kind of control does not make you cold. It makes you conscious. You are no longer driven by every emotional current. You still feel, but you do not drown. You still care, but you are not consumed. You learn to surf your emotions instead of being pulled beneath their waves. You develop emotional boundaries, not walls that shut people out, but filters that keep your clarity in. You learn to say no without guilt, to walk away from what drains you, to rest when your inner space feels crowded. You protect your emotional gravity the same way you protect your time, your energy, your peace. Sometimes the release is not loud, it is not dramatic. Sometimes it is simply a decision, a quiet moment of truth when you say, I no longer need to carry this, and you exhale. And in that breath, something softens, something lifts. You begin to trust your body. It knows when you are carrying too much. It tells you through tension, through fatigue, through headaches, through shallow breathing. The body keeps the score, not to punish you, but to wake you up. To say, something here needs attention. So you listen, you slow down, you journal, you stretch, you breathe deeply and ask, what emotion needs to move through me today? Not to control it, but to meet it. Not to fight it, but to feel it with compassion. That compassion becomes a form of strength. You stop judging yourself for having emotions. You stop labeling them as good or bad. You see them as information. Each feeling becomes a signal, a message from the inside. You do not silence it, you receive it, and then you choose how to respond. Over time, your emotional gravity becomes lighter. You walk through your days with more ease. You are no longer reacting to everything. You are responding with intention. There is more space inside you, more calm between thoughts, more breath between emotions. You begin to carry a presence that others can feel. A calm that does not come from pretending everything is fine, but from knowing that even when things are not fine, you can handle it. You can stay steady. You can stay connected to yourself. This is emotional maturity, not the absence of feeling, but the ability to hold your feelings without being ruled by them, to hold sadness without sinking, to hold joy without gripping, to hold anger without exploding, to feel everything and still remain grounded. You learn to reset throughout the day. You take emotional breaks. You pause and scan your inner world like you would scan your inbox. What needs to be cleared? What can wait? What needs a response? You are no longer afraid of your emotions. You are fluent in their language. You know how to speak with sadness, how to listen to fear, how to thank anger for its message and then let it move on. This fluency becomes your strength. You do not need to escape yourself. You are at home inside, and that is a kind of freedom most people never find, because they are too busy outrunning their feelings, numbing them, distracting from them. But you have chosen a different path, a path of awareness, a path of presence, a path of responsibility, and it changes everything, not all at once, but slowly, day by day, thought by thought, breath by breath. This is emotional gravity control, and it is not just something you practice. It becomes a way of moving through the world, a way of holding space for yourself, a way of living lighter without losing your depth. There is a quiet strength that comes from knowing how to carry yourself through emotion without losing your center. You do not have to avoid the deep moments anymore. You can sit with sadness. You can feel the weight of frustration. You can acknowledge fear when it rises, but you do not live there. You no longer build a home in the places that were meant to pass through you. This is what control begins to look like in its highest form. Not rigid, not cold, but calm, soft and steady. You do not suppress. You allow. You feel fully. But you also guide yourself through. With presence, with patience, with intention. You begin to trust your process. You stop rushing to feel better. You stop demanding that emotions leave before they are ready. Instead, you give them room. You listen. You learn what they are teaching you. And when the time comes, you let them go. Not because you are forcing them out, but because they no longer need to stay. This is the moment where emotional gravity starts working for you, not against you. It no longer drags you down. It grounds you. It anchors you. You feel more rooted in your responses, more clear in your choices. You are not controlled by the rise and fall of every emotion. You have found your inner weight. And that weight keeps you balanced. You no longer panic when emotions shift. You know now that they are always shifting, like waves, like seasons. You do not chase the highs. You do not run from the lows. You let them move through, like wind through open windows. They visit, they leave, and you remain. Remaining is the practice. Being still enough to watch a storm inside you and still choose peace. Being strong enough to feel the chaos and still act with care. You do not respond with the intensity of the feeling. You respond with the clarity of your values. That is the difference between being ruled by emotion and moving with it. You also learn what adds to your emotional weight. People, habits, environments, stories you keep telling yourself. And when you recognize what drains you, you no longer ignore it. You take small, steady steps to change it, because you are no longer willing to carry what does not belong. You do not shame yourself for feeling. You do not shame others either. You become someone who holds space for your own heart, for the people around you. You do not fix everyone. You do not fix everything. You stay present. You listen. You witness. And sometimes that is enough. There is peace in no longer needing to control every feeling. You are not here to win against your emotions. You are here to understand them, to use them as signals, to let them inform your choices, not dominate them. You understand now that strength is not shown in how much you hold in. It is shown in how gently you move through what you hold. It is shown in how you let go, how you forgive, how you return to yourself after being pulled in 100 directions. You keep returning to your breath, to your intention, to your awareness. This return is your real control, not a grip, not a push, but a quiet coming back to center. And from that center, you begin to create differently, speak differently, love differently. You no longer carry old energy into new spaces. You no longer respond to today from the wounds of yesterday. You are clear now, lighter, more grounded. Even in the middle of pain, you hold yourself with care. You say, I see this feeling, I welcome it, but I will not let it lead. I will feel it, but I will not become it. And when it passes, I will still be here, still standing, still soft, still whole. This is emotional gravity control, the art of rising without running, the skill of feeling deeply while staying clear, the decision to keep choosing presence, no matter how heavy it gets. And you do not master it in a day. You practice, you return, you adjust. But each time you do, the weight lessens. Your step becomes lighter. Your voice becomes more steady. Your mind becomes quieter. You have not removed emotion from your life. You have simply learned how to move through it without losing yourself. And that is freedom. The mental fortress rituals. What if your mind was a fortress? Not a place of cold isolation, but a space of strength, clarity, and control. What if the thoughts that tried to break you had to pass through walls you had built with care, and instead of falling apart in chaos, you could stand calmly in the middle of it, protected by the discipline and habits you built every day? Most people walk through life with no walls around their mind. Every noise enters, every emotion takes over, every opinion finds space to settle. There is no filter, no gatekeeper. Thoughts come and go as they please, shaping mood, shaping actions, shaping identity. And over time, a person who once had vision becomes clogged by confusion. Not because they lack strength, but because they lack structure. The mental fortress is built with rituals, quiet ones, Small ones, repeated ones, not grand declarations. Not once a year resolutions, but daily actions that train your mind to stay strong, even when everything around you is falling apart. A person wakes up, and the first thing they do is check their phone. Their mind is pulled into opinions, updates, distractions. They do not even know what they think yet, but they are already reacting to the world. That is not a fortress. That is an open field in a thunderstorm. Everything comes in, nothing is guarded. The shift begins when you decide your mind deserves better, when you choose to protect your first thoughts of the day, when you choose to create space before the noise. A morning ritual becomes the first stone in the wall. Not something elaborate, just something intentional. You wake up and breathe. You sit in stillness before anything external enters. You remind yourself what matters, what your values are, what your direction is. And in that space, your mind begins to remember that it is not here to react to everything. It is here to respond with clarity. That first hour of the day is sacred. What you feed your mind in those moments sets the tone, so you choose wisely. You may journal, you may read something meaningful, you may move your body to activate your presence. It does not matter what the ritual looks like. What matters is that it is yours, that it belongs to your mind, not to the outside world. Rituals train the mind to expect order. They create rhythm. They build a pattern that calms the nervous system. Over time, your brain begins to rely on them as anchors. No matter how stormy the day becomes, those anchors hold you steady. The mental fortress is also shaped by what you allow in. Every conversation, every piece of content, every environment you step into. These are bricks or cracks. They either strengthen the walls or weaken them. You learn to be mindful of your inputs, not from fear, but from respect. You are not avoiding the world. You are choosing what deserves your energy. You realize that not everything needs your reaction. That silence is often more powerful than a reply. That walking away is sometimes louder than fighting to be heard. This discipline becomes part of your identity. You are no longer easily shaken. You are no longer pulled into every emotional current. You have rituals that hold you, habits that protect you, standards that guide you. One of the most important rituals is reflection, a moment at the end of the day when you ask, where did my mind go today? What did I feed it? What did I allow to grow inside it? You review without judgment, not to shame yourself, but to understand yourself. That awareness is how you correct course. That awareness is how you evolve. You stop living by default. You start living by design. The fortress is built on that decision, that every part of your day, no matter how small, is a vote for the kind of mind you want to carry. You begin to respect your attention. You treat it like currency. You do not spend it on things that do not give you clarity in return. You focus it. You direct it. And in that direction, you find your power. There are moments, of course, when the walls feel thin, when doubt sneaks in, when fear becomes loud, but now you know how to return. You know how to fall back into your rituals, into your breath, into your silence, into your structure, and with each return, the fortress becomes stronger. It is not built in a single day. It is built in quiet mornings, in difficult decisions, in gentle boundaries, in clear priorities. You do not wait for motivation anymore. You live by commitment. You do not chase energy. You generate it through movement. You do not need the world to be peaceful. You have made your mind a place of peace. That is what makes the fortress unshakable. It is not the absence of struggle. It is the presence of discipline. It is not the lack of emotion. It is the clarity in the middle of emotion. It is not isolation. It is intention. You begin to carry this strength into everything you do, into your work, into your conversations, into your rest. You are no longer reactive. You are responsive, thoughtful, grounded, and the people around you feel it. They may not know why, but they sense something different. It is not aggression. It is not control. It is peace that is not easily disturbed. That peace was built, ritual by ritual, thought by thought, day by day. This is how the mental fortress rises, and it begins with one decision: to protect the space where all your thoughts are born, to make that space sacred, to treat it like a temple, because when your mind is strong, your life reflects it. When your inner world is clear, your outer world aligns. You are not just surviving anymore. You are becoming the architect of your mind, and the rituals are your tools. There is a quiet strength in a person who no longer allows the world to shape their mind by default. You can see it in their focus, in the way they do not flinch under pressure, in the calm they carry into uncertain moments. That strength is not luck. It is not something they were born with. It is the result of daily effort. Repeated discipline, internal rituals practiced in silence. The mental fortress is not just about protection, it is about preparation. When you train your mind with intention, you are not reacting to life as it comes. You are ready before the challenge even arrives. You have built the internal capacity to meet difficulty with clarity, to meet pressure with presence, to meet fear with grounded focus. The structure you build inside determines how you respond outside. That is why the rituals matter. They are not routines for the sake of routine. They are signals. Signals to your nervous system that you are safe. Signals to your mind that you are in control. They anchor you. You begin to notice how much of your mental strength is tied to how you start and end your day. Morning is the opening. Night is the closing. These two windows shape the quality of everything in between. When you win your mornings, you build momentum. When you close your nights with reflection, you build insight. The morning ritual is about ownership. Before the world makes its demands, you meet yourself. You sit in stillness, even for a moment. You check in. What is my intention today? What do I want to carry? And what do I want to leave behind? You move your body to activate energy. You review your goals to sharpen your direction. You create order inside so you can face the chaos outside. Then the day begins, and with it comes noise, pressure, and distraction. But your mind is no longer an open gate. It has structure now. You do not let everything in. You choose. You filter. You stay centered. Midday rituals become important too. A pause, a reset, a breath, 5 minutes of silence, a walk without your phone. A check-in where you ask, am I being intentional or have I drifted into reaction? These small resets throughout the day bring you back to center. They remind you that control is not a single act. It is a practice that you return to again and again. The evening is for closing loops, for reviewing without judgment. What worked today? Where did I lose myself? Where did I stay grounded? You reflect. You learn. You do not spiral into regret. You simply observe and adjust. That is how you improve without pressure. That is how you grow without self-hate. You also begin to protect your energy more carefully. You stop giving your mind to every conflict, every opinion, every piece of information. Not everything deserves your analysis. Not every voice deserves space inside your head. You begin to filter what reaches you. Not because you are avoiding the world, but because you are no longer letting it flood you. This filter becomes a kind of mental hygiene. Just like your body needs rest and nutrition, your mind needs space and clarity. You turn off the noise. You limit how much stimulation you allow in. You are no longer overfed on mental junk. You are clear. You are focused. You also develop emotional rituals. When something hurts, you do not bury it. You sit with it. You name it. You write it out. You let it pass through instead of storing it. You allow emotions, but you do not become them. You feel them fully, and then you return to the center. Over time, this center becomes unshakable, because it is not built on motivation. It is built on structure. Even on bad days, you have rituals to fall back on. Even in chaos, you know how to return. That return is your real strength. People often think mental toughness means never feeling weak, but it is the opposite. It is knowing how to stay steady in your weakness, knowing how to keep moving when your mind wants to run. That steadiness is built through ritual, through the decision to show up again and again, especially when it is hardest. You learn to use your environment wisely. You arrange your space to support your clarity. You clean the clutter because a clear space supports a clear mind. You keep things simple because simplicity breeds focus. Your environment no longer distracts you, it strengthens you. And with every day that you stick to your practices, the fortress becomes more real, more reliable, more alive. You do not need the world to slow down anymore. You have slowed down inside. You do not need external silence. You have found it within. And this stillness is not fragile. It can hold the weight of your life. It can carry you through anything. That is the power of mental fortress rituals. They are not a shield to hide behind. They are a foundation to rise from. You are no longer afraid of what might come, because you trust the system you have built. You trust the discipline you return to. You trust yourself. This trust changes everything. You walk with less fear. You speak with more clarity. You decide with more ease. Because your mind is no longer a battlefield. It is your sanctuary. And when the day ends, you do not crash. You rest. You close the loop. You prepare for tomorrow. And you fall asleep knowing that no matter what happens next, you will meet it with structure, with calm, with strength. This is what it means to build your mental fortress. And it all begins with ritual. There is a peace that lives inside a structured mind. It does not depend on perfect conditions. It does not wait for motivation. It is built on steady, deliberate action. Every ritual you've kept, every boundary you've held, every thought you've chosen to redirect these become the bricks of your fortress. You are no longer just surviving your thoughts. You are shaping them. In this final stage, something important shifts. You stop thinking of rituals as tasks and begin to see them as anchors. They are no longer boxes to check off. They are reminders. Reminders of who you are becoming. Reminders of the standards you now live by. You do not keep them for performance. You keep them for protection. You wake up, and your morning ritual is no longer about just getting ahead. It is about returning to center, a place within you that is calm, clear, and focused. That space is now familiar. You enter it with ease. You have trained your body and mind to meet the day with stillness before movement, with intention before noise. Your thoughts are no longer scattered across a dozen fears. You are not pulled in every direction the moment your eyes open. You are present, and that presence makes everything you do more precise. Whether it is your work, your conversations, or your rest, there is a noticeable difference. You are there, fully. During the day, when distractions try to sneak in, you feel the shift more clearly. You can sense when your focus begins to drift. You feel it in your breathing, in your posture, in the way your energy starts to scatter. But instead of panicking, instead of falling into reaction, you do what you have practiced. You return. You reset. A simple breath, a few minutes of silence, a quiet pause before you act. This is what you've built the rituals for, so that when the pressure rises, you don't. When the world speeds up, you slow down inside. That contrast is your advantage. That is the fortress at work. Even your language begins to change. You speak with intention, not just reaction. You choose your words carefully. You stop explaining yourself where it is not needed. You stop pouring your energy into proving things that no longer matter. Your clarity speaks for you. Your presence speaks louder than defense ever could. And then there is discipline, not the harsh kind, the consistent kind. You keep your promises to yourself. You show up when you say you will. You train even when you are tired. You write even when you do not feel creative. You keep the small habits alive because they protect the larger vision. The person who can follow through, even on the days they don't feel like it, holds quiet power. That person is not chasing perfection. They are holding alignment. and alignment creates confidence. Not the fake kind that comes from approval, but the grounded kind that comes from knowing you can rely on yourself. Your evening rituals start to take on a new meaning too. They are not just a way to wind down. They are a sacred space to review the day, to empty what is no longer needed. You do not carry every conversation to bed. You do not let stress follow you into sleep. You have a closing ceremony for your thoughts. A quiet walk, a stretch, a line written in your journal, a few breaths in silence. These moments signal to your mind that it is safe to rest. You are no longer overrun by unfinished loops and open tabs. You let go with trust, because you know tomorrow will begin with structure, and you know you will meet it ready. You also start noticing how you deal with unexpected chaos. Life does not always follow the plan. People disappoint, schedules fall apart, conflict rises without warning, but your rituals remain, your structure holds, because it was never about controlling the world. It was about training your mind to stand tall no matter what the world throws at you. There's a stillness in that kind of readiness, a calm resilience. You do not have to prepare for every possible outcome. You simply become the kind of person who can respond to any outcome. That flexibility is part of your fortress. That trust in your own ability to navigate is part of your freedom. Over time, the mental fortress becomes your identity, not as something you wear for others to see, but as something you feel within. You do not break so easily now. You do not fold under pressure. You do not chase every opinion or get dragged into every storm. You stand, not in hardness, but in clarity, not in arrogance, but in peace, because you know what you've built. You know how you got here. Quiet morning after quiet morning, small act after small act, discipline over emotion, intention over impulse. That is your foundation. You no longer ask, "How do I stay strong?" You ask, "How do I stay aligned?" You no longer fear falling apart. You know how to rebuild, because you have done it before, because your rituals have taught you how to return. This is what it means to have a mental fortress. It does not mean you feel nothing. It means you are no longer ruled by everything. You feel, you process, you move forward, with presence, with direction, with strength that is not seen but felt in every step you take, and every day you return to your rituals, not because you have to, but because they are who you are now, the pause that protects power. What if the strongest thing you could do in a moment of pressure was to do nothing, not out of fear, not out of hesitation, but from deep control? What if your real power did not come from how fast you reacted, but from how deliberately you chose to pause? Most people live in reaction. They speak before they think. They act before they reflect. They move before they are clear, and that reaction costs them more than they realize. It costs them peace. It costs them clarity. It costs them influence. The pause is a space. A simple, sacred space between stimulus and response. Something happens. Someone says something. Life throws a curve. And in that exact moment, you do not need to respond immediately. You pause. You breathe. You assess. You regain control of your energy before you release it. A person who does not pause is like a ship without a rudder. Every wind pulls them. Every wave decides their direction. But the one who pauses becomes the captain. They steer. They choose. They move with purpose. This pause is not weakness. It is wisdom. It is not inaction. It is intention. A small comment is made that triggers something old inside you. The usual response would be defense, maybe anger, maybe silence that turns into resentment. But not this time. You feel the heat rise, and then you stop, just for a breath, just long enough to see the story you are about to tell yourself, just long enough to ask, is this mine, or is this coming from somewhere else? That pause saves you from saying something you regret, from reacting to a wound instead of the moment, From turning a small problem into a big one, the power is not in the silence. The power is in what the silence prevents. Pausing does not mean staying still forever. It means you move after awareness, not before it. You train your nervous system to respond with clarity, not with chaos. You learn to spot the moment your emotions start pulling you away from your values, and in that exact second, you breathe and return. You begin to build this practice through small things: a text that annoys you, a delay that frustrates you, a task you are avoiding. You feel the emotion rise, and instead of moving on autopilot, you pause. You create space for a conscious choice. And the more you practice, the stronger that muscle becomes. Pausing becomes your tool in decision-making. You no longer say yes out of pressure. You no longer say no out of fear. You take a moment. You check in with yourself. You ask, is this true to my values? Is this aligned with my direction? Am I making this decision from a place of presence or from panic? That one moment of stillness can change your path. In conversations, the pause becomes your power. You listen fully. You do not just wait to speak. You do not rush to defend. You create a pocket of presence where understanding can grow. You make space for truth to reveal itself. People feel that. They trust that. Because in a world of noise, silence feels like safety. You begin to notice how the pause changes your energy. You are no longer drained by reaction. You conserve your emotional resources. You use them wisely. You are not constantly caught up in the turbulence of the world. You are grounded, because you have given yourself permission to slow down. You realize that urgency is often a lie, that not everything needs your instant answer, that most pressure is manufactured. And when you pause, you cut through the illusion. You find what really matters. You act from that place. In the middle of conflict, the pause is everything. It is the space where escalation dies, where empathy can grow, where the mind has a moment to catch up with the heart. When you pause, you give the conversation a chance to become something better, something more honest, more human. You also begin to pause with yourself. You do not rush through your own pain. You do not skip over your own needs. You check in. You ask how you are, without needing to fix anything right away. That kindness is a kind of protection. It keeps your inner space clean, balanced. The pause becomes part of your morning. Before you check your phone, before you begin to move, you sit, you breathe, you set your energy. You begin the day from within, not from the outside in. It becomes part of your night, a final moment before sleep. To let go, to process, to return to stillness. You do not carry every thought into your rest. You pause and clear the space. The world may still move fast, but you do not where it matters. And when things truly do move quickly, you are ready, because your pause is not about slowing down the world. It is about sharpening your presence inside of it. You can move fast without losing yourself, because you have trained your mind to stay anchored, even in motion. This pause becomes your edge. It makes you sharper, more thoughtful, more composed. You stop fighting to be understood. You speak only when your words are clear. You stop chasing control. You act only when your steps are aligned. And when you do speak, it comes from depth. When you do move, it comes from strength. Because there is no panic inside you, only focus, only direction. This is not something you master in a day. It is a ritual, a habit, a lifestyle. The more you practice, the more natural it becomes, the more powerful you become. Because the person who can pause in pressure can control any room. And more importantly, they can control themselves. That is the pause that protects power. And it begins with one breath. There is a certain kind of presence that cannot be faked. It is not loud. It does not demand attention. It does not seek control through words or actions. It simply exists. It holds steady, and behind that presence is a pause. A habit so subtle it is often unnoticed. But it is the root of the calm, the clarity, the quiet confidence that follows. You begin to realize that the pause is not just a strategy, it is a way of being, a discipline that trains your mind to resist its own noise, a moment that teaches your body to settle before it speaks. The person who builds this kind of presence becomes a different kind of leader, not one who dominates, but one who sees clearly. This pause is not passive, it is active. It is a deliberate act of self-regulation. In that space between reaction and response, there is choice. And every time you choose to wait, to feel, to see, instead of rushing forward, you strengthen that choice. The real benefit of the pause is not just in what it prevents, it is in what it creates. It creates room for your highest self to speak, for your values to rise above your impulses, for wisdom to guide action instead of emotion, leading reaction. When something frustrates you, your old pattern might have been to meet that frustration with more fire, to argue, to defend, to correct. But now, you pause. And in that pause, you see the other person more clearly. You see yourself more clearly. You understand that not every moment requires a response, that sometimes silence holds more power than speech. It is in this silence that you become aware of your patterns. You start to notice the triggers that used to own you, the moments when fear spoke too quickly, the habits that repeated themselves not because they were useful, but because they were familiar. Now you catch them, you notice them, and that noticing is freedom. The pause becomes your personal checkpoint. It asks you, are you reacting to survive, or are you responding to build? Are you acting from emotion, or from clarity? Are you speaking to prove, or to connect? These are quiet questions. They do not shout, but they reshape your entire way of living. You begin to see how the pause is a gift in your relationships. You stop interrupting. You stop rushing to fix everything. You stop trying to win every moment. Instead, you listen. You hold space. You give people the feeling that they are safe with you, that their words are heard, not judged. People feel that presence, and they trust it. Because in a world where everyone is quick to speak, the one who knows how to pause becomes a rare and grounding force. The pause also helps you reclaim your inner voice. You no longer rush decisions based on outside pressure. You wait until the noise settles, until the emotion fades, until the surface reaction passes, and what remains is something real. This does not mean you are slow or indecisive. It means you are precise. You know that rushed decisions often come with hidden costs. You wait just long enough to be sure. And that pause, that patience, saves you from problems that others walk into blindly. It becomes part of your creativity. You do not chase ideas in a panic. You allow them to come through space. You stop trying to force inspiration. You create the conditions for it by slowing down, by clearing mental clutter, by sitting in stillness long enough to hear what truly matters. Even in conflict, you now move differently. You no longer meet emotion with more emotion. You breathe. You soften. You pause long enough to ask, what is really being said here? What needs to be heard? What is the truth beneath the tension? That pause de-escalates. It calms. It invites clarity. You realize now that most people do not actually want to argue. They just want to be seen. They want their feelings to land somewhere. And when you pause and make space for that, the fight often fades before it even begins. You become less reactive to your own inner critic too. That voice that once convinced you to quit, to doubt, to shrink, now has less power, because you do not engage it immediately. You hear it, but you wait. You ask yourself, is this voice helping me grow, or is it trying to protect me from discomfort? You learn that you do not have to believe every thought. You do not have to obey every feeling. You can pause and choose again, over and over, and you start to trust that stillness. You start to find peace in restraint. You do not need to fill every silence. You do not need to react to every shift in energy. You understand that power is not in the response. Power is in the ability to choose the response. And sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is to say nothing at all. Not as avoidance, but as alignment. The pause becomes the gateway to emotional control, to intellectual clarity, to relational depth. You see now that in every moment where you used to feel rushed, you were being given a choice, a chance to grow instead of repeat. You no longer fear silence. You no longer resist stillness. You understand now that both are tools, both are bridges to your deeper truth, and you use them well. This is the pause that protects power. It is not about being slow. It is about being sharp. It is not about doing less. It is about doing what matters. And it all begins in the space between, where you no longer react by default. You respond by design. There is something sacred about the space between impulse and action, a space so small it often goes unnoticed. Yet it holds the power to shape your entire life. The person who masters that space, who learns to sit in it with patience and clarity, becomes someone who no longer lives by accident. They live by choice, and that is the beginning of real power. The pause you have practiced is no longer just a tool. It has become a state of being. You no longer rush to be first. You no longer need to prove you are right. You no longer feel the urgency to respond to every voice, every challenge, every opinion. You hold stillness like it is strength, because now you know it is. Your pause is not hesitation. It is alignment, a moment of deep listening where your emotions, your values, and your intentions meet. It is in this pause that you catch yourself before saying something you do not mean, before making a decision you would later question, before breaking the peace you worked so hard to build. And you start to understand something deeper, that the pause does not just protect you from external chaos. It protects your inner environment, the part of you that is quiet, clear, and wise, the part that often gets buried beneath urgency and noise. But now, you have cleared space for it to speak. When something upsets you, you no longer respond immediately, not because you are suppressing the feeling, but because you are giving it space to breathe. You ask yourself, what is this really about? What am I trying to defend? What fear am I reacting from? And in that pause, truth rises. You become aware of how much energy you once wasted on instant reactions, conversations that led nowhere, arguments that only made things worse, regret that followed quick decisions. But now, you respond from a deeper place. You act with intention. You speak only when your words are ready. This changes the way people see you. They feel your calm. They sense your restraint. They recognize your presence. And in a world full of noise, that presence becomes magnetic. It draws respect without demanding it. It invites trust without forcing it. Because people feel safe around someone who is not ruled by emotion. You become a quiet force. Not the kind that dominates, but the kind that steadies. You are no longer unpredictable. You are consistent, grounded, steady even when others are not. That steadiness is what others begin to lean on, not because you are trying to lead, but because your presence naturally becomes a lighthouse in their storm. And when the world tries to pull you back into the old rhythm and people expect quick replies, when situations pressure you to act fast, when everything around you speeds up, you remember the pause. You return to it like a breath, like a home. You know now that nothing good comes from rushing. That speed without awareness is noise. That clarity cannot be found in panic. You are not afraid to slow down, even if the world around you is moving fast, because your pace is no longer set by fear. It is set by focus. This also becomes a gift you offer others. Your ability to pause helps them feel heard. Your willingness to listen without jumping in teaches them what real attention looks like. You create space for deeper conversation, for reflection, for honesty. And that space transforms your relationships. You no longer react to every mood. You no longer mirror every emotion. You hold yourself steady, and in doing so, you give others permission to do the same. There will still be moments when you feel pulled into old habits, times when emotion builds quickly and the urge to react feels strong. But now, you catch it. You recognize the tension. You breathe. You create space. And that is all it takes. One small pause to protect everything you have built. You also learn how to use the pause for yourself. When life becomes overwhelming, you no longer push through mindlessly. You stop. You check in. You ask, what do I need right now? You rest without guilt. You reflect without judgment. You give yourself the space to realign. And in that pause, you reconnect with your values. You remember what matters. You come back to yourself. Not the version of you shaped by urgency or reaction, but the one who chooses, the one who leads with presence, the one who moves with purpose. This is how you protect your energy. This is how you build a life that feels calm even in chaos. This is how you become someone who others turn to, not for answers, but for steadiness, because you are no longer rushed by emotion. You are guided by clarity. You are no longer triggered into reaction. You are anchored in awareness. You are no longer tossed by the winds of pressure. You are moved only by what aligns with your deepest self. And all of this begins in that one breath of space, the pause that protects your power. It is not a break in the rhythm. It is the rhythm. It is not what keeps you from acting. It is what allows you to act with truth, and it is always available. A moment, a breath, a return to the self. This is how power is preserved. This is how peace is protected. This is the pause that changes everything. Reframing pain into power. What if the very thing you were trying to escape is the very thing that could make you unshakable? What if your pain was not a punishment but a passage, a bridge, not a burden? And instead of running from it, you learn to walk through it slowly, mindfully, with open eyes and a stronger heart. Pain is something we are taught to avoid. From a young age, we are conditioned to run from discomfort, to distract ourselves, to numb, to push it away and pretend it is not there. But the truth is, pain is not the enemy. The way we see it is, there is a version of you waiting on the other side of your pain, a version that does not just survive it, but transforms through it. But that version is only born when you stop asking why this happened to you and start asking what it can reveal to you. The shift begins with a simple yet powerful question. What if this pain is here to teach me something I could never learn through comfort? You start to look at pain differently, not as something to be fixed immediately, but as something to be understood, to be honored, to be reframed. Reframing does not mean pretending the pain did not happen. It means giving it a new role, a new meaning. Instead of letting it define your weakness, you let it point toward your strength. There is a moment that everyone faces, a loss, a betrayal, a failure, a heartbreak. And in that moment, there is a choice. You can let it shrink you, or you can let it sculpt you. One path leads to resentment, the other leads to power. But the choice is not made once. It is made again and again. Every morning you wake up. Every time the memory returns, every time the weight tries to pull you back, you begin to realize that pain is not just about what happened. It is about what story you attach to it. If your story is that this should never have happened, you stay stuck. If your story is that this broke me, you stay broken. But if your story is this shaped me, this made me, this opened a part of me that would have stayed asleep, everything begins to change. You start to mine your pain for gold. What did it show you about your limits? What did it teach you about your needs? What did it break inside you that needed to be rebuilt anyway? You may find that your pain exposed parts of your identity that were never truly yours, roles you were playing, masks you were wearing, and in that breaking, you had a chance to return to something more honest, more real. This is where the power begins. In truth, in saying, This hurt me. This broke something in me. But I am not going to live from that wound. I am going to learn how to live from the wisdom it gave me. You do not have to romanticize the pain. You just have to stop giving it the power to define your future. It is a part of your story, not the end of it. And once you stop resisting it, you begin to see what it was trying to reveal all along. Maybe it taught you boundaries. Maybe it taught you to listen to your gut. Maybe it taught you the importance of walking away. Maybe it gave you compassion for others who are suffering. Or maybe it just woke you up to the fact that you were meant for more. You begin to see that every scar has a story, and when you are ready, you can choose what that story is. Pain gives you depth. It gives you range. It gives you a quiet kind of empathy. You start to see others differently. You speak softer. You listen longer. You stop judging people for breaking, because you remember how hard it was to put yourself back together. This does not make you weak. It makes you wise. You learn to sit with discomfort without needing to escape it. You let it pass through without forcing it away. You cry when you need to. You rest when your body asks you to. You allow the process to be messy, because real healing is not clean. It is not quick. It is not quiet. But it is worth it. And you begin to move differently. You walk with a certain steadiness, not because life got easier, but because you got stronger. You are no longer afraid of falling apart, because you have done that before, and you know how to rebuild. That is the kind of power no one can take from you. You do not have to pretend you are fine. You just have to keep showing up with honesty. You just have to keep asking, what is this moment trying to teach me? How can I grow through this? Who am I becoming through this pain? Because if pain is a teacher, power is the lesson. And now you are starting to learn. This is how you begin to reframe. You do not erase what happened. You elevate it. You use it. You carry it not as a weight, but as a reminder of what you've walked through and what you are still capable of walking through. The pain may not be your choice, but how you rise from it is, and that is where your power lives. There comes a point when you stop asking why something hurt you and begin asking what it built in you. Pain does not just arrive to wound, it arrives to awaken. But most people never get to that second part. They stay caught in the injury, not realizing that every emotion they feel is also trying to show them a path forward. Reframing pain into power is not about pretending to be fine. It is not about forcing a positive spin. It is about looking at your experience with honesty and asking a different kind of question. One that starts with, what did this unlock in me? You begin to see how pain exposes truth. It shows you what matters. It brings clarity. It reveals people who were only standing with you when things were easy. It strips away illusions. Pain, in its harsh way, gives you vision. You begin to see through things, through roles, through routines, through masks you no longer need. But none of this insight comes if you are constantly numbing, if you avoid every difficult feeling, if you rush past discomfort looking for the next distraction. Power is not found in avoidance. It is found in stillness, in sitting with what hurts long enough to hear what it is asking from you. Maybe it is asking you to stop tolerating something that breaks you. Maybe it is telling you to change direction. Maybe it is pushing you to finally face something you have buried for years. You cannot hear that message when your first reaction is to escape. But now you are learning to stay. And in staying, you notice how much strength there is in softness. You do not need to become hard to survive pain. You do not need to armor yourself. True power is not found in becoming untouchable. It is found in becoming fully alive. You learn to move through pain with presence, with breath, with patience. You learn to stop judging yourself for hurting. You start recognizing that growth always begins with some kind of discomfort, that no transformation ever happened inside of your comfort zone. You look at your past differently. You stop calling it a mistake and start calling it a turning point. You stop seeing yourself as broken and start seeing yourself as someone who has been broken open. you begin to speak with more truth. You no longer hide the parts of you that were shaped by pain, because now you know those parts are not weaknesses. They are where your courage lives. They are what gave you depth. They are the reason you understand others the way you do now. And with this new lens, you begin to feel a shift. The pain that once made you feel small now feels like a foundation. Not something you have to carry forever, but something you can build from. This is how people begin to rebuild trust in themselves, not by erasing the hard things, but by reclaiming them. By saying, "This happened, and I faced it. This hurt, but I did not run. I bent, but I did not break. And even if I did break, I learned how to put myself back together in a way that made me stronger." You are not waiting for life to feel easy anymore. You are just getting better at walking through it with resilience. Your measure of success is no longer the absence of struggle. It is how deeply you stay connected to yourself when struggle appears. This connection is what fuels your power. Because when you stop resisting pain, you stop giving it control. You stop letting it drive your choices. You stop living in reaction. You start responding. And response is rooted in reflection, in slowing down, in asking yourself what this pain is trying to build in you. Sometimes it builds boundaries. Sometimes it builds clarity. Sometimes it builds a kind of self-respect that no one else could have given you. But no matter what it builds, it always reveals. It reveals where you still need healing, where you still carry stories that do not serve you, where you are still trying to earn love through sacrifice, where you are still hiding your voice because of past rejection. You begin to pull those old stories into the light, one by one. You stop carrying shame around them. You stop pretending they do not affect you, and instead, you choose to rewrite them, gently, patiently, honestly. You say to yourself, "This story used to break me, but now it strengthens me." This is not toxic positivity. This is grounded resilience. This is the kind of hope that does not deny the dark. It just believes there is more beyond it. You begin to live from that belief. You start creating again. You start showing up again. You take the risks that once scared you, because even if it hurts again, you trust your capacity to handle it. That is power. That is how pain becomes fuel. It becomes a reminder that you have been through things others may never understand, and yet you are still here. You are still rising. You are still building something with what tried to break you. And now, you are not just surviving your pain, you are turning it into presence, into purpose, into power. And that shift is not loud, it is quiet, but it is permanent. There is a turning point when pain no longer feels like something you are trapped in. It becomes something you move with, something you learn from, something you hold, but no longer carry as a burden. You feel its presence, but you are not defined by it anymore. This is the final step in reframing pain into power, when your story is no longer just about what hurt you, but about what it gave you. The clarity, the perspective, the depth, the self-awareness, the boundaries, the fire. You begin to realize that every wound taught you how to hold yourself. Every disappointment taught you how to release expectations. Every betrayal showed you where your worth had been misplaced. Every moment of silence taught you how to listen inwardly. You no longer need revenge. You no longer need apologies. You no longer need the story to be rewritten. You have taken the pen into your own hands, and from that place you begin to build again. You do not erase the past. You honor it by building something meaningful on top of it, and in doing so, you rewrite the emotional weight that pain once had over you. You start to feel stronger not because life is easier, but because you have grown into someone who no longer fears hardship. You have met your limits. You have met your breaking points. And still, you are here. That kind of knowing lives in your bones. It becomes your foundation. You walk into rooms now with a quieter presence, but a deeper energy. People feel it. Not because you are trying to impress anyone, but because you are carrying truth. The kind of truth that cannot be bought, only lived, only earned. and you begin to extend that truth to others. You no longer look at people and judge their flaws. You see their struggle. You feel their tension. You recognize the pain they hide behind performance. And without needing to fix them, you begin to offer something more powerful: your presence, your stillness, your example. Because nothing speaks louder than someone who has turned their wounds into wisdom. Pain once made you feel like you had to close off. Now, it teaches you to open carefully, but honestly. You trust yourself to recover. You trust yourself to choose better. And so, you begin again, with more care, with more clarity, with more heart. You live slower, not because you are afraid, but because you are intentional now. You no longer rush into things that do not align. You no longer force situations that drain you. You no longer betray your needs just to feel accepted. You have walked through that lesson, and you do not need to learn it again. You learn to hold joy more fully, too, because now you understand its value. You are not waiting for something to go wrong. You are not sabotaging good things before they can settle. You are no longer in fear of losing what you have. You are simply present. You are grateful. You know what it took to feel light again. And in that lightness, there is peace. You no longer carry stories like chains. You carry them like keys. Not everything needs to be told. Not every scar needs to be shown. But the wisdom that came from them is now part of how you live, how you move, how you love. There will still be moments when the old ache returns, when grief visits in waves, when something triggers a memory you thought you had outgrown. But you do not resist it. You breathe. You welcome it like an old teacher. And you remember, you are not who you were when that pain first arrived. You are someone new now, and this version of you knows how to hold space for healing. This is not a linear journey. Some days the pain feels far behind you. Other days it feels fresh again. But the difference now is you do not fear the cycle. You trust it. You trust that each time it returns, you have more capacity to meet it, more awareness, more tools, more choice. And slowly, pain becomes not something to be ashamed of, but something you've grown from. It becomes a chapter, not the whole story. It becomes your wisdom, not your identity. It becomes your reminder not of what you lost, but of how much you have gained. You look back and say, I would never wish for that to happen again, but I no longer wish to erase it either, because without it, I would not be this grounded, this awake, this alive. You reframe not to deny the depth of what you've felt, but to honor the depth of who you have become. You have turned pain into presence, into power, into peace, and that kind of power never needs to shout. It just walks forward, softly, unshaken and free. The nothing-to-prove attitude. What if the most powerful version of you was not the one who won the argument, gained approval, or proved everyone wrong? What if the strongest version was the one who no longer needed any of that? Not because you gave up, but because you outgrew the need to explain yourself to people who never truly saw you in the first place. There is a moment when trying to prove yourself becomes exhausting. At first, it looks like drive. It feels like hunger. You want to succeed, to be respected, to be taken seriously. But beneath that desire, something quieter begins to grow. A constant tension, a need to be seen, a fear of being misunderstood. And that fear becomes fuel. You do more, you say more, you try harder, but it never really ends. Because the people you are trying to prove something to are often not watching. Or worse, they are not even capable of seeing the truth you are trying to show. This is where the shift begins. The nothing-to-prove attitude is not a sign of giving up. It is the beginning of freedom. A mindset that says, I no longer need to spend my energy convincing anyone. I do not need to explain my path to those who do not walk beside me. I do not need to prove my worth to people who never valued me to begin with. You reach this place when you realize that true peace does not come from being accepted. It comes from being authentic. And authenticity does not require applause. It only asks for alignment. You start to see that much of your stress was not coming from the things you were doing, but from why you were doing them. You were not tired because you worked hard. You were tired because you were constantly trying to validate your efforts through someone else's reaction. You were chasing recognition. And recognition is a moving target. When you live with the nothing-to-prove mindset, you reclaim your energy. You move with purpose, not performance. You speak when it matters, not when it is expected. You show up fully, but not to impress, just to be present, just to be real. You learn to do things because they are right for you, not because they make you look right to others. You no longer post your progress for applause. You protect it. You no longer enter rooms to be seen. You enter them to serve, to learn, to connect. You are not trying to be the loudest. You are trying to be the clearest, the calmest, the most grounded. And that calmness is built in silence, in the moments you choose not to argue, in the moments you walk away instead of explaining yourself again, in the moments you smile, not because everything is perfect, but because you no longer need it to be. This mindset gives you space to focus. You are no longer distracted by comparison. You are no longer slowed down by doubt. You understand now that not every critic is your teacher. Not every voice deserves a response. Not every stage is worth standing on. You begin to recognize how much peace lives in detachment, not from life, not from people, but from outcomes, from opinions, from the invisible scoreboard that society creates, where your value is always measured by how many people approve of what you are doing. You step off that field, and you build your own. You decide what success means to you. You decide what is meaningful, what is enough, and you stop explaining that to anyone else. That decision changes the way you move through the world. You are less reactive. You are more observant. You are more selective about where you place your time and energy, because now you are no longer in competition. You are in clarity. You are not chasing recognition. You are building consistency. You are not looking for a spotlight. You are finding peace in your own lane. This does not mean you stop growing. It means your growth is no longer loud, no longer driven by proving something. It becomes natural, quiet, rooted in curiosity and presence. And people will notice. They will ask, "What changed? Why do you seem so steady now? So sure?" And you will smile, because you know what they are seeing is not confidence. It is release. The weight you let go of when you stop trying to earn your place in rooms you never needed to be in. You have nothing to prove anymore. And that does not make you passive. It makes you powerful. You speak less, but your words carry more. You share less, but what you share is real. You do not explain your peace. You protect it. You do not chase attention. You create impact through presence alone. This is not a mindset for everyone. It requires deep self-trust. It requires letting go of external validation. It requires knowing that not everyone will understand, and still choosing to be yourself anyway. But once you feel that freedom, there is no going back. You no longer try to control how others see you. You only focus on living in a way that reflects what you know to be true, and in that truth, you find strength. Not the strength to prove people wrong, but the strength to no longer need to. Because your life is no longer a debate, it is a quiet declaration. I am who I am. I am enough, and I am done explaining it. There is a peace that begins to settle in when you stop performing for approval, when you no longer feel the need to win people over, when you finally understand that validation from the outside cannot replace alignment on the inside. That peace is not loud. It is not dramatic. It shows up in the quiet ways you move differently through your day. You wake up and no longer feel the pressure to prove your worth through how much you accomplish. You do things because they matter to you, not because they will be noticed. You stop needing to constantly update people on your progress. You are not hiding. You are simply choosing privacy over performance. This kind of living is rare, because most people are still trapped in the loop of needing to be seen. They chase applause. They chase visibility. They want to be acknowledged. And when they are not, they feel unseen, unworthy, and unnoticed. But the one who has nothing to prove lives differently. They are no longer chasing something that cannot be caught. You begin to understand how much power there is in doing things quietly, in building your life without explaining every brick, in letting your work speak for itself, without needing a caption or a comment to validate it. When you have nothing to prove, your pace changes. You no longer rush to catch up to anyone. You stop measuring your timing against someone else's success. You know now that pressure does not build character. Intention does. You also become more protective of your attention. You stop entertaining debates that go nowhere. You stop engaging with people who only want to challenge your choices, not understand them. You learn to let people be confused about you, to let them have their own narrative. And you do not interrupt it, because it is not your responsibility to correct every misunderstanding. That freedom becomes your fuel. You now have more energy for what actually matters, for your peace, your craft, your health, your relationships, not the curated ones, the real ones, the ones that do not need a performance to survive. You stop broadcasting your pain just to feel seen. You process in silence. You heal in peace. You no longer feel the need to turn every lesson into a post, every moment into a message. Some things are meant to be sacred. Some moments are meant to be just for you. The nothing-to-prove attitude teaches you patience, because when you are not trying to impress anyone, you are no longer in a hurry. You do not chase timelines. You do not fear being misunderstood. You know your truth, and that is enough. It teaches you strength. Because when you stop responding to everything, your silence becomes your power. You realize that not everything deserves your words. That sometimes the strongest thing you can do is not react, and it teaches you presence. Because when you are no longer distracted by how others see you, you become more connected to what you actually feel. You move from the inside out, not the outside in. This changes the way you make decisions. You no longer ask, "How will this look?" You ask, "Does this feel right?" You do not move to impress. You move to express. You are no longer sculpting an image. You are simply living the truth. And that truth becomes your compass. When someone doubts you, you do not rush to defend yourself. You let their doubt live. When someone underestimates you, you do not try to prove them wrong. You just continue, because your worth does not shift depending on their understanding. You stop fighting for your place, because you are no longer trying to be chosen. You have already chosen yourself. That choice changes everything. You begin to attract different situations, different people, different energy. You are no longer chasing outcomes. You are building a foundation. And you are doing it with consistency, not with noise. You are doing it from a place of self-respect, not desperation. This is not arrogance. It is clarity. It is knowing what you bring, knowing who you are, and not needing to convince the world of it before you believe it yourself. You begin to trust the long game. You understand that short-term recognition is not always worth long-term peace. You stop sacrificing your truth for a round of applause. You are playing a different game now, one where the only score that matters is how aligned you feel with your own values, and that alignment brings peace. You are no longer trying to outperform someone else's expectations. You are simply rising into your own. That is the quiet shift. You move with less fear and more focus. You speak with less defense and more depth. You show up with less pressure and more presence, because when you have nothing to prove, everything you do becomes an extension of who you are, not who you are trying to be. And that is where your power lives. Not in proving, but in being, fully, freely, unapologetically. There is a certain silence that comes with freedom, not the kind of silence that hides, but the kind that speaks. A quiet presence that carries the weight of someone who no longer needs to be understood to feel whole. Someone who has let go of the constant effort to prove they are enough, and has simply started living like they are. This is the final shift, when you are no longer moved by who notices, when you no longer base your actions on how they will be received, when your inner voice becomes louder than the noise around you. You are no longer driven by proving, you are guided by peace, and that peace is built slowly. You realize now that trying to prove your worth only ever distracted you from living it. It kept you chasing people, situations, and achievements that were never rooted in your truth. You were busy convincing the world of your value when you could have been building it in quiet spaces no one saw. Now, you move differently. There is no rush to explain, no need to be impressive, no desire to perform. You focus on alignment over applause, substance over status, presence over performance. You speak less, but your words hold weight. You do less, but what you do carries more depth. You no longer scatter your energy in 100 directions hoping someone sees your effort. You bring all of your energy into what matters, whether it is seen or not. And that changes everything. Your relationships shift. You stop chasing closeness with people who only value what you can prove. You surround yourself with those who value how you show up, not what you show off. You stop trying to earn love and start choosing peace. You no longer feel the pressure to explain your every move. You do not need people to understand why you left, why you stayed quiet, why you took the path that made sense only to you. You know your reasons, and that is enough. The more you settle into this way of being, the more you trust your own rhythm. You stop comparing timelines. You stop thinking you are behind just because someone else got there first. You know what you are building is real, and that real things take time. You also begin to notice how freeing it is to be misunderstood, to let someone have the wrong version of your story and not feel the need to correct it, because correcting them costs energy. And explaining your truth to someone who has already decided not to listen does not bring clarity, it only brings exhaustion. So you let it go. You start choosing your peace over your pride, your inner stillness over your outer performance, your direction over their expectation, and slowly the world begins to respond to that clarity. You attract what aligns. You lose what no longer fits. And you are okay with both, because your self-worth is not shaken by loss. It is not inflated by praise. It is steady, rooted, quietly unshakable. The nothing-to-prove attitude is not about becoming distant or cold. It is about becoming full, so full that you no longer seek from others what you have already found within. So full that you give without needing anything back. You love without performing. You create without pressure. You move without explanation. This is not ego, it is essence. It is living from the truth of who you are, rather than the fear of who others think you should be. And that truth becomes your anchor. In rooms where others are loud, you are calm. In conversations where others compete, you stay grounded. In situations where others seek control, you remain clear. Because you are not trying to win anymore. You are just trying to be whole. And you are. You have nothing to prove, not to the past, not to the people who left, not to the world that missed the real you while you were still becoming. You simply live with clarity, with softness, with strength that does not need to shout. You walk into the world as someone who carries their worth, not in their words, but in their walk. And that quiet confidence is louder than anything you could ever say. This is the nothing-to-prove attitude, and once it is yours, no one can take it from you. The identity, built by fire. What if the version of you that could never be shaken was not born in moments of peace, but in moments of chaos? What if your real strength was not found in comfort, but in the fires you had to walk through just to stand again? There is a kind of identity that is not built by success, applause, or perfection. It is built by fire. It is shaped in silence, forged in adversity. It does not grow in the sunlight. It grows in the shadows, quietly, slowly, powerfully. When life is easy, we rarely question who we are. But when everything falls apart, we are forced to meet ourselves without distractions, without filters. We face the pain, the fear, the loss, and in that meeting, we are given a choice. We can collapse, or we can begin to rebuild something deeper. You learn more about yourself in the dark than you ever could in the light. You learn what matters when everything is taken away. You learn what stays true when everything else falls apart. That truth becomes your foundation, not because it came easily, but because it survived the fire. And that survival changes everything. At first, pain feels like destruction, like something breaking you down. And maybe it is, but not to leave you empty. It breaks what needed to go. It exposes what was fragile. It burns away what was never truly yours to begin with. What is left is what is real. The fire reveals your strength by removing the illusion of strength. You see what you relied on that could not hold you: the people, the titles, the routines, the external praise. And once those are gone, you are left with something raw, something honest, something alive. That is where identity begins, not in who you think you are, not in what others have told you, but in who you are when nothing is performing, nothing is pretending, nothing is protecting you from the truth. You begin to rebuild, but this time from a different place. You do not rebuild to impress. You do not rebuild to be seen. You rebuild because you have met a version of yourself that is stronger than you ever imagined, and you want to live from that version now. That is how the fire begins to shape you. You are no longer chasing identity in things that change. You are anchoring it in something unshakable, in your ability to keep going, in your decision to stay present, in your refusal to be defined by what hurt you. The identity built by fire does not seek perfection. It seeks presence, it seeks truth, it seeks alignment, and it is not afraid to be misunderstood, because it is not trying to convince anyone anymore. It is simply trying to stay rooted. You stop needing to explain why you are different now, why you speak more softly, why you move more slowly, why you no longer chase the same things you once did, because those who have walked through their own fire will recognize it in your eyes, and those who have not may never understand, and that is okay. You learn to let go of being understood, because you are no longer building your identity on being accepted. You are building it on being real. This is where power returns, not the loud kind, not the dramatic kind, but the quiet, steady kind, the kind of power that shows up in how you hold your emotions, in how you walk into a room without needing attention, in how you keep your peace even when the world is loud. That power was not learned in books. It was learned in moments when everything inside you wanted to give up, and yet you kept going. Moments when you had nothing left to give, but you gave your presence. Moments when you felt invisible but still chose to show up fully. You realize now that your strength was never built by what went right. It was built by what tried to break you and failed. The fire refined you. It taught you boundaries. It taught you resilience. It taught you to trust yourself when no one else did. It showed you how to hold pain without becoming bitter, how to carry memories without letting them poison your future. You do not hate the fire anymore. You respect it. You do not run from discomfort. You recognize it as part of the process, a necessary part of evolution, of deepening, of becoming, and you are still becoming. Every day, you are building more of yourself. Through every quiet decision to keep growing, through every small act of courage, through every time you choose truth over comfort. This is the identity that cannot be taken from you, because it was never handed to you. It was built, it was earned, it was born in the fire, and it will carry you through anything that comes next. There comes a moment when you stop trying to return to the version of you that existed before the fire, before the pain, before the loss, because you realize that person, while innocent and whole in their own way, no longer exists. And more importantly, they no longer fit the life you are growing into. The fire changed you. Not just in surface ways, but in deep structural ones. It rewired how you think, how you feel, how you see the world, and now you are learning how to live as the person who came out the other side. This part of the journey is quiet. There is no crowd watching. There is no applause. There are no shortcuts. Just you, learning how to carry what you've earned. You start noticing that your tolerance for noise has decreased. You are no longer interested in proving yourself. You are no longer entertained by distraction. What you want now is depth, realness, grounding. You begin to rebuild your life differently. You choose relationships that feel safe, not impressive. You value spaces that offer peace, not performance. You do not need everything to be perfect. You just want it to be true. The fire taught you this. It showed you what matters and what does not. It taught you that there is no point in looking successful on the outside if you are crumbling on the inside. It taught you that peace is more valuable than praise. And now you live by those lessons. You also start to carry your pain differently. You no longer wear it as a mask or use it as a shield. You do not pretend it never happened, but you do not let it define every conversation. It is there, in your bones, but it no longer controls you. It walks beside you, not in front of you. And when people ask how you got through what you did, you do not rush to explain. You just smile, because you know there is no single answer. It was not one moment. It was hundreds of tiny decisions. To keep going, to keep healing, to keep believing that the fire would not be the end of you but the beginning. This identity is not loud, but it is steady. It does not demand the spotlight, because it has nothing to prove. You are no longer trying to be impressive. You are trying to be whole. And being whole means accepting all of it. The strength and the softness, the scars and the wisdom. The fact that sometimes you still hurt, but now you know how to hold that hurt with grace. You have become your own source of safety. You have learned to listen to yourself when no one else can hear what you are going through. You have learned to stop abandoning yourself for the comfort of others. This shift is everything. Because once you stop betraying yourself, you start building a life that feels like home. You find yourself saying no more often. Not to be difficult, but to stay aligned. You walk away from things that do not feel right, even if you cannot explain why. You are no longer searching for the world to understand you. You are just trying to live in a way that does not ask you to leave pieces of yourself behind. And in that space, something beautiful starts to grow. You feel more at ease with who you are. You begin to trust your timing. You do not panic when things are slow. You do not rush the process, because the fire already taught you what happens when you force things before they are ready. You now understand that what is meant for you will not require you to burn yourself again to receive it. You start living with a quiet rhythm, a pace that feels right for you. You are no longer measuring your success against someone else's timeline. You are walking a path that is honest, and that honesty gives you peace. And when challenges return as they always do, no longer collapse, you remember the last fire. You remember who you became through it. You know you can walk through this too. Not because you are invincible, but because you have done it before. And each time, you came back a little stronger, a little clearer, a little more yourself. This is not about being hardened. It is about being seasoned, tempered, matured by your own resilience. You do not look for strength anymore. You recognize that it already lives in you. Your identity is not built by what you avoided. It is built by what you endured, by what you chose to learn instead of ignore, by the way you showed up for yourself when no one else knew how to show up for you. And now, you stand with a kind of quiet authority, not the kind that needs to be seen, but the kind that is felt in your presence, in your peace, in your refusal to rush, perform, or explain. This is the identity built by fire. It does not need to prove itself. It simply continues to rise. There is a calm that grows inside you when you stop resisting what shaped you, a soft kind of certainty that says, I have already been through what I thought would break me, and yet I am still here, and not just here, but clearer, stronger, wiser, more aligned with the truth I once tried to outrun. The identity built by fire is not something you wear, it is something you carry, quietly, daily, in the way you breathe more deeply before reacting, in the way you walk away from noise without the need to announce it, in the way you hold yourself steady when chaos returns. You have changed, and you know it. Not because you now speak louder, but because you feel no need to speak at all just to be heard. Not because you became invulnerable, but because you learned to be vulnerable without losing your center. This is not a version of you that grew by adding more layers. This is a version of you that was revealed by stripping them away. The fire did not decorate you, it purified you. It took away what was never really you to begin with, the roles, the approval, the masks, and it gave you back your essence. You start seeing life through a different lens now. You are not interested in people who only understand you when you shine. You are drawn to the ones who recognize what it took to become light, the ones who have known their own darkness and came out softer, not colder. The identity you have now does not make you perfect. It makes you whole, and wholeness allows space for contradiction. You can be both healing and helping, both grounded and growing, both scarred and sacred. You do not have to explain that to anyone. You just live it. You live it in the choices you make without forcing them to be understood. You live it in the work you do, quietly aligned with your values. You live it in how you treat others, not because of who they are, but because of who you are. That is the shift. You are no longer reacting to life. You are responding from your truth. You are no longer trying to be someone. You are returning to who you have always been beneath everything that hurt you. This kind of identity cannot be shaken by temporary failure. Because failure is no longer personal. It is information. It is part of the fire, and the fire no longer threatens you. It reveals you. It strengthens what is ready to grow and burns away what is done. You do not fear starting over, because you know how to rebuild. You know that even if everything is taken, you can return to yourself. You know that peace is not in the outcome, it is in the alignment. You begin to protect this identity, not with walls, but with boundaries. You no longer over-explain. You no longer overextend. You give your time with care. You give your energy with purpose. You are not guarded. You are intentional. And people will feel that. Even if they cannot name it, they will feel something solid in you, something that does not shift with opinion, something that does not collapse under pressure. That is what the fire gave you. It gave you a self that is not built on titles or validation, but on truth. A self that no longer needs permission to rest, to leave, to stay, to choose. A self that is no longer addicted to urgency, chaos, or the need to prove. You are not looking to be saved anymore. You have learned to sit with your pain, to walk with it, to speak to it gently. And in that conversation you found a kind of power you never knew you had. You are no longer afraid of silence. You are no longer afraid of slow seasons. You are no longer afraid of what people think when they misunderstand your calm. Because your identity is no longer up for debate. It is lived. It is breathed. It is protected in the way you keep choosing alignment over applause. This is the identity built by fire. It does not boast. It does not chase. It does not defend. It simply stands, still, solid, free. There is a moment in life where you no longer try to be who you were before the pain, not because you are broken, but because you are no longer interested in returning to a version of yourself that had not yet been awakened. The fire changed everything, and now you carry its mark not as a wound, but as a witness. Proof that you endured. Proof that you grew. This final stage is not about rebuilding what was lost. It is about rising into what was revealed. The person you are now is not a recovery of who you were. It is a refinement, sharper, clearer, rooted in something real. You begin to see how much your story has evolved. In the past, you may have looked at the fire and asked, Why me? Now, you look at the same flame and say, "Thank you for showing me what I could become." You stop resisting the memory. You stop labeling your past as shameful. You begin to carry it with care, like something sacred. Not perfect, but purposeful. The identity built by fire is not a costume. It is not a performance. It is not a front that hides your past. It is what happens when you take everything that hurt and everything that helped and you weave it into something unshakable, something real. You no longer measure your value by what you have or how you are seen. You measure it by how deeply you know yourself, by how calmly you can sit in silence, by how honestly you can hold space for others without losing yourself in the process. You become the kind of person who does not need to announce their healing. It is felt in your stillness, in the way you speak slower, in the way you listen longer, in the way you no longer rush to be understood because you understand yourself. This is what the fire gave you. You begin to trust your ability to walk alone, not because you want to be isolated, but because solitude no longer scares you. You find peace in your own presence. You rest in your own rhythm. You are no longer afraid of the quiet. It is where you first met your truth. When you move now, you move with care. Your steps are not loud, but they are certain. You do not need to force your voice into every space. You do not need to push yourself into every opportunity. You trust that what is meant for you will never require you to become less of yourself to receive it. That is the fire's final lesson. You were never meant to survive by shrinking. You were meant to rise by remembering. And now you remember. You remember how you kept going when you had nothing left but breath. You remember how you stayed soft in moments that tried to harden you. You remember how you built something steady out of everything that once felt shattered. This is your identity now. It is in the choices you make when no one is watching. It is in the way you treat people who cannot offer you anything in return. It is in the way you carry your pain not as a weapon, but as a teacher. You are no longer performing strength. You are living it. With quiet hands, with an open heart, with an unshakable spirit. This is the identity built by fire. It is not about rising above the flames. It is about standing inside them again and again and becoming more of yourself every time. And that's it. Hope you're in peace. Just consider subscribing, because sleep matters. Just then, stress scatters and nothing else matters, right? Peace out.